Sacred Symbols is sponsored by Chime, the mega useful banking app and suite of basic banking features. You can learn more about at chime.com/sacred. So start your credit journey with Chime. Signing up only takes 2 minutes and doesn't affect your credit score. Get started at chime.com/sacred. That's chime.com/SACRED. The Chime Credit Builder Visa credit card is issued by Stride Bank NA pursuant to a license from Visa USA. Chime checking account and $200 qualifying direct deposit required to apply for the secured Chime Credit Builder Visa credit card. Regular on-time payment history can have a positive impact on your credit score. Impact the score may vary, and some users' scores may not improve. Out-of-network ATM withdrawal fees may apply, except at MoneyPass ATMs and a 7-Eleven or any Allpoint or Visa Plus Alliance ATM. Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. This is episode number 239. My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm joined as always by my son, the fighting Puerto Rican Chris Raygun. How are you today, my friends? My friend, congratulations on your recent announcement. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. I'm doing the Creator Clash, which if anybody's kept up with influencer boxing or just the YouTube space in general, they'll probably know what that is. It's a pretty big deal. Like I've had there's a lot more eyes on me now than there ever probably have been, and it's fucking weird. It's very like disturbing in some way because it's just like this like overnight kind of like, oh, suddenly your stats are like stupid high on like Instagram stories and stuff, and it's like this is off-putting, but it's cool. You know,
That's great.
Doing some training. I've been training for like the last 5 months. About 3 to 4 times a week in the boxing gym, and then like on other days that aren't in the gym, it's lifting and all that shit. So it's been crazy. It's been a wild restructuring of my life, to be honest.
Yeah, I imagine so. I have. Well, first of all, we've known about this for a long time, and I think a lot of the audience has put it together.
Yeah,
somewhat conspicuous for them if they put 2 and 2 together. However, Serge wrote into us. Sorry, I was swallowing. Serge wrote into us and said, "Chris, who are you?" As a fairly new member to the Sacred household, I must admit that my knowledge base of you guys outside of Colin is fairly limited. So when I decided to venture into Chris's other content, only to find a video of him shirtless and sniffing lines of protein powder off a kitchen countertop, I had to ask, what is going on with this man in his boxing gloves? Have you become our modern day Cinderella man, Chris? Is this venture into boxing being made for monetary purposes? Does Colin not pay you enough? What say you? So obviously, this is not the first creator clash, but
this is nowhere near the first like YouTuber boxing event either. But
right.
it's the second creator clash. Obviously, iDubbbz is putting it together with his wife Anissa. There's a bunch of people on the card that are pretty interesting. Marisha Ray from Critical Role is on there, and it's just like all these like visits. Like I look so out of place, and I love it. It's
yeah,
just like,
I must admit it. You know what it reminded me of, and Dustin, let's get you in here real quick. Dustin Furman, executive producer.
Hello.
Is it reminded me a little bit of when I see Coachella announcements. You know how they announce Coachella and it's just all of these names, and I'm like, literally, there's probably 120 bands, and I'm not even kidding. I know 10 of them.
Yeah.
Maybe. And that's kind of how I felt looking at this array of people. I'm like, I don't know. I know Alana, who works at Santa Monica Studio and used to work at IGN. I've only met her once in person, but she's nice. I know her and a couple other people, but I don't even know who any of these people are, including your opponent.
Oh my God.
I'm not entirely sure who he is.
Oh my God, dude, Froggy Fresh.
I want you to beat the fucking shit out of him. That's all I care about.
No, Froggy's awesome. Froggy Fresh. If you've actually, it's so funny. He was mentioned in a Red Letter Media video that I was watching recently because they were talking about like all the stuff that they have, like all the stuff that they've been collecting, and they have like a signed shirt or something from Froggy because there's like this old. If you guys have any idea who or want to know who Froggy Fresh is, look up. I think it's called "I Am the Baddest of Them All," and it's like this rap video from like 2010 or something. It's awesome. He actually makes like real music now, and it's pretty solid. But yeah, it's very. I think it's the weirdest matchup for sure because I think people expected me to want to do it, but I don't think they expected me to actually do it for various reasons. I don't talk about sports a lot. I also just think generally people think like, oh, maybe he's too controversial or whatever. But it's cool being on this weird boxing card and it's been cool training. I've been training with this Bulgarian man who's kind of scary, but he's also like really really. He pushes people and like he gave iDubbbz a nosebleed when we were sparring. So I was like, that's what I was like. Okay, so this is a real a real coach, but no, it's crazy. It's just that I it's not a monetary thing really. It's for me. It's just more like I wanted to do something that was like really really out of my comfort zone. And also, I just wanted to get an excuse. I wanted an excuse to get in shape because I've always been like pretty fit despite doing nothing. And I feel like I'm just like wasting. Like
that's what I was telling. That's what I was telling Mike. I was like, Chris has actually always been pretty cut up. Yeah, you had your gym moments, right? I mean, you'd go.
Yeah, like a little bit. But the issue is like when I would go to the gym, I wasn't really like a gym rat. I didn't really pay attention to it. I wasn't like in the fitness culture. So I would go to the gym because it's like, I should probably do cardio, I guess. But I wasn't like altering my diet in any way. So it was just like no return. I would just go to the gym and, it would be good, I guess, mentally. But like it wasn't actually contributing to anything because I was still eating like not enough calories to offset the burn. Now it's like different. Now I'm actually like putting on weight. I think I put on about 10 pounds.
Wow. All muscle probably too. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's, and I got to keep, I mentioned this before we started recording. The amount that I have to eat now is staggering compared to the amount that I was eating before. Like I used to like peck throughout the whole day. I would have like maybe one relatively sizable meal a day. And it wasn't even like the one meal a day kind of thing. It wasn't like Colin where he probably has like every single meal at once.
Right.
Just like,
that is what it
like,
is.
Oh, just a reasonable normal plate of food at like a diner. And I would finish that. And then like throughout the day, I would like just like peck on stuff. So I shot up from about like 1,800 calories a day to like towards like around like 29 to 3,000, which for me is like a massive shift. But I also just have to remind myself to keep eating, even when I'm not hungry, which sucks. It's like the worst part of this. I don't mind getting I don't mind getting pummeled in the face. I don't mind getting like, barraged in the solar plexus. I don't mind having my liver, pressure pointed into oblivion. I don't mind any of that. But like, just the feeling of like being full the whole day is nauseating. I don't know how people do it. I can't even fathom it.
I don't either. I'm not even hungry half the day. I feel nauseous half the day. To be perfectly honest with you, I don't even want to eat until later, which is probably another reason why I do it. But I'm happy for you, man. I was telling you, so people are going to see these out of order depending on where you see them, but we already recorded Sacred Symbols Cross-Defining Duke, and we talk a little bit about it there, I think. Yeah. And I think on that show, I was saying that I was just hysterical at the dude punching you in the gut in the video. Like I was like, that is probably one of the funniest shots of Chris I've ever seen in my entire life.
It's a good shot.
I'm really looking forward to it. People have asked if I'm going to go. I want to actually look into seeing if I can get there for it. A lot of it is if I can get there directly from Richmond, which I imagine I can because it's in Tampa.
Yeah.
So I think that should be doable because Richmond's a pretty tiny airport and I don't know where they go. But it would be fun. People had written in and I had already said to you, like, I think it would be hysterical to be in your entourage. Like one of my favorite things about boxing is the entourage. You got the guy in the suit. You got the guy whispering in the dude's ear. You got the guy wrapping him up and his business guy and all, and everyone's just kind of standing around, a bunch of mystery men and women.
Yeah.
And I think it would be funny to just be one of those. I do
want to. I have to talk to them about like setting all that up, but I think that would be more than possible. But
I'll wear a Kingdom Hearts shirt to make it proud.
If you wear a Kingdom Hearts shirt during
like you need to have someone take off the robe, like someone. Right. You have to have that. Someone's got to do that for you. If it's not us, it's got to be someone. Sweeney.
Yeah. I think. Yeah, man. I don't know. It's a lot to think about. But I have a lot of this kind of planned out. I already know. I know the song. I know the general vibe of the walkout. I have all that planned. That was like one of the first things. It was like one of the first things I settled on when I was at last year's Creator Clash. I was like, if I was doing this is what I would do.
It's very exciting.
And I was just like, I got to do this. But yeah, no, it's a wild endeavor. If anybody's curious, if anybody wants to go, I don't mean to like promote it or anything necessarily, but like, I mean, we're talking about it.
Do it.
Thecreatorclash.com. I think tickets go on sale the 27th, so probably the day this goes live. Go check it out. I'm sure it'll be streaming as well. So don't stress. But yeah, it's at the Amalie Arena in Tampa, Florida on April 15th, tax day is how I've been remembering it.
Beautiful.
Excellent. And yeah, we're going to try to get you some sort of sacred symbols gear. I would like that.
Yeah, we'll
something. It doesn't have to be overt. Like we were saying, again, I feel redundant because we said this.
I like subtle.
Yeah, me too.
I have an idea. I have some ideas that I'm going to run by the wardrobe people.
Cool. That's excellent. Well, I'm excited for you. I'm going to be going to Vegas to place my bets. I'm going to be one of those. You know, in Vegas. Have you been to Vegas, Dustin?
I have a long time ago, and I was poor. It sucked.
Yeah. Okay.
Not a good place to be poor in.
No. Chris, you've been to Vegas.
Yeah. I don't remember any of it because I was drunk the whole time, but yeah.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Well, one of my favorite things in the bigger venues, like the bigger hotels and resorts, are the rooms where you do sports betting, and they're just wide open, like huge rooms with a billion TVs. It's like Buffalo Wild Wings times.
Yeah.
It's Buffalo Wild Wings times 100 at least. And there's just people sitting all around, and I love just watching people there because I love watching games end and then watching people's responses to that. And it's a great place to people watch. If people go to Vegas, just like go get a beer somewhere or a drink, smoke a cigar, and just sit there like in the back and just watch. Especially when there's like a few.
The one episode with the horse race with Tony.
Yeah, that was OTR or OTB rather. I think when they right, don't they do that there? Which is a big Northeast thing anyway.
It's a fun place to people. The last time I was in Vegas, I was like hammered at 2 p.m. and then my phone exploded in the heat. And then I had to walk to like the nearest Verizon in the blazing sun in the middle of the afternoon, hammered to get a new phone.
Yeah, dude, it's true.
Vegas
poolside Vegas is the only time my phone ever gave me that I'm shutting off thing, where it's like, it's too hot, got to shut off, do something about it quick.
Yo, you know what?
You have to like put it under a like a blanket or something.
Dude, you know what it was? It was like, it was so hot, and like my phone kept doing that, and then I was like, oh well, I have a waterproof phone, so I'm just gonna bring it in the pool with me, like whatever. And it usually works, by the way. This is not a problem. But it was so hot that the waterproofing liquid was melting out of it.
Oh, interesting.
Because I remember like I picked it up and like there was like this black sludge on the side of it, and I'm like, what the? It's like a symbiote. And I was like, what the fuck is this? And then the screen shut off, but I could still hear, like it was still like functioning. It's just like I couldn't see anything. So I had to be like, Siri, direct me to Verizon. And so
you had to use it like a blind person. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah,
like,
it was. And I walked like, I think like 3 blocks to Verizon. That poor soul. I think his name was Kenny. I remember that because I thought it was funny for some reason. Nothing about that is funny, but I was laughing at him while he was fixing my phone. I'm so sorry, Kenny, if you're listening to this.
Well, he probably has to fix all sorts of people's phones the same exact thing. Just all. Yeah. He probably is making Kenny's probably making a killing. Dustin.
Yes.
Let me hear your voice, my friend. How are you today?
Hello. I'm a little angry. I'm very happy for Chris and this opportunity. I think it's awesome. In fact, I was maybe bragging a little bit about Chris to some of my friends who know about this event, where they were like, holy shit, he's fighting Froggy Fresh. And I was like, yeah, hell yeah. But
dude,
the thing
Chris is going to win.
Dude,
he's going to beat Froggy Fresh. Go ahead.
Well, let's put money
confident.
Down. But here's the thing. He's talking about like, oh, I have to eat more food. When I'm looking at this and like, dude, I can put down like half of a pizza. And I looked it up. That's 1,200 calories. And that's on top of anything else I've eaten earlier in the day. And we're doing so many shows lately. I don't know what I said where, but I've said before, it's a miracle that I'm not obese with being able to easily eat half a pizza, whatever. Like Christmas time, my in-laws give me all this candy and stuff. And so that's been in the rotation. I'm trying not to, but I can easily, the 3,000 calorie thing. I'm like, fuck,
oh my God,
yeah, sign me up. I need to start working out so I can eat more.
Right.
So here's the thing about it, right? Is there are certain things I can pack away. Like you give me like a good plate of pasta, I'll have it until there's nothing left, for real. Pasta is like, I don't even feel it for whatever reason. It's just like, that's like a vacuum. Pizza, easily I could finish like a big New York pie, which is like typically bigger than like a standard, like, I don't know, Pizza Hut or like Domino's or Little Caesars. I can easily finish a good 3/4 to like maybe the whole thing, because for some reason Italian food is just like that to me. Like I love Italian food, but out here there's none, like there's very there's a lot less of those foods that I can easily pack away. Chipotle has been like a go-to for me because it's like a lot in a little. Like a really maximized Chipotle burrito is like a massive amount of calories, and it's like good calories too. So like I've been relying pretty heavily on that, but like I don't know, man. It's just if I could have a pizza every day, man, I'd be set. But like the pizza sucks here.
Yeah.
So like I'm not.
It really does. It really, really does. But it's funny you bring up Chipotle because I know Dustin has a passion for it, and living in Mexico. I never lived in Mexico. Living in California, you can trip over good Mexican food. It's San Francisco and LA both have awesome Mexican food. So you would never eat, at least in my opinion, it would have been comical to go to a place like Chipotle. It was the same reason why you like really didn't go to McDonald's too much in San Francisco, because it's like, well, why don't you just go to In-N-Out? It's cheaper and it's better. But with, so it's interesting to think about that in the sense that I got Chipotle for the first time yesterday. I got it delivered with their app, which was pretty good. I was surprised that
they have a great app.
The app's good. And I must say, hook, line, and sinker, their commercials during football got me, because the commercials aren't funny or anything like that. It's just them cooking food. And it's like all the ingredients and whatnot. And I'm like, okay. So Micah wasn't feeling well yesterday. She usually does the cooking. We didn't have any. I offered to cook, but we didn't have really anything. So I'm like, well, let's order. We were going to order pizza. We were going to order Domino's or something. And I was like, let's order Chipotle. So I got a burrito and I got a quesadilla. Both of those things. She got a burrito and we got chips and all that. And I must say, it was pretty good. It's generic. It's not like you went into a taqueria and got a California burrito or something, but
no.
But it's good. It's acceptable. So I'll allow it.
There are infinitely better Mexican places in California than Chipotle. However,
no doubt.
Sure. I'm really close to a Chipotle. I'm really close.
Oh yeah, the convenience.
Like that's kind of the thing. It's like I got to maximize my time here, man. You know.
Can I give a shout out to another humble Mexican joint?
Sure.
In California? Del Taco.
Oh no!
I've never been to one.
Oh no! I'm close to a Del Taco too, and I walked in there for like I walked in there once, and I was just like, and I was looking at the menu, and I was just like, I think I might just be thirsty. And I got a lemonade and left.
Dude, I love Del Taco for some reason. You know what I think it is because you can get Mexican and Americana together. So it's like you want a cheeseburger and a taco. You want a burrito and fries.
That's so vile. It's like a school cafeteria. Like
it is school cafeteria. They even have the crinkle cut school cafeteria fries.
Yeah. I could. I don't know. Del Taco freaks me out. Like like what's funny about. I mean, we're getting off on a tangent here, but like in California, there's a lot of weird, like Jack in the Box has churros. You know, and they're delicious, by the way. Like the best churros I've had from like a fast food place, like bar none. Like I'd overdose on those churros. But like, just the idea that there's always like some Mexican thing, no matter where you go here, is pretty cool. Except
it's
for
like how McDonald's in Maine has lobster rolls. It's like,
yeah.
No,
that's so weird. You know.
Now, Colin, something important to know. Since you've been baptized in the Chipotle app, you can get achievements, and so this is my PlayStation stars straight up. I've got 4 achievements on deck here: the guac mode, the 3-peat by ordering 3 times. I tried the new garlic steak, and then you can view all your achievements as well.
Nice.
This is not an ad for Chipotle, by the way, but I am passionate.
They can. If they want to sponsor Sacred Symbols, I'll totally be. I love to take Chipotle's money. There's no problem with that.
That would be an absolute dream.
You guys let us know. We love our sponsors as they are now, but we're always looking for new sponsors. And Chipotle, hit us up.
Hell yeah.
All right. Welcome to Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. How many minutes have we been going? A long time now. We go up live each and every week. This might be
the longest intro.
Yeah, who cares? I don't care anymore. This goes live each and every week. You can get it 3 days early and ad-free on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. We are having our best month on Patreon in a long time. We thank you for that. something like 12,500 of you over there right now supporting us. $5 a month is the most popular tier. That gets you early ad-free access to all the shows we do, including Constellation, our conversational podcast, Sacred Symbols Plus twice a week, our expansion of Sacred Symbols, Defining Duke the Xbox podcast, and their expansion, Ultimate, as well as Knockback, our bi-weekly nostalgia podcast. Submit questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas to the show, and so on and so on. Get your name in the credits, Q&A. You know the deal. We appreciate you over there. And you can join us on Discord too. A lot of people love the Discord. Thousands of you over there. A lot of you are crazy on Discord. I got to be honest with you.
Insane.
What else? Clipsane. Clipsane. What the fuck was that? Clipsane. I don't know what the fuck that means. Clips channel as well. Still going on YouTube if you're interested. New Sacred Symbols Plus episodes you can find on Patreon include our weekly Last of Us reviews on HBO. We're going long on those reviews. I'll tell you what, it's been a lot of fun talking about. Yeah, me too.
They're
and the audience is really liking them. I sat down with Colin from Limited Run Games for a conversation. I'm going to make that free for everyone soon, but if you're on Patreon, you can check that out. I think that's an important one for everyone to see. We did our fantasy Metacritic draft. Sacred Sail Saga is going on. Spoiler cast and review discussions for Callisto Protocol, Crisis Core, Trails of Cold Steel, etc. Upcoming ones include, we'll definitely do one for Dead Space Remake, I think.
Oh, yeah.
We'll do one for Hogwarts Legacy. I think Carolyn's going to be on that one with us or with me. I don't know if any of you guys are going to play it. And we'll go from there. I don't think any of us are going to play Forspoken. We'll talk about that in a little while. So look forward to that. And lastdaymedia.store for merch if you're interested. Thank you for supporting us over there. We're in Texas, in Houston. Are there tickets still available for that show?
You know, I was just wondering that.
I have no idea, but Miguel...
The floor's gone.
The floor, oh yeah. Oh, the floor's been gone for a long time. Miguel Valoy wrote in and said, "Hey, Sacred Boys, with the next live show around a month away, are there any plans to announce the next one? Maybe at the live show. Is the Sacred family going across the pond after all?" I don't know. I mean, Ben was tasked with figuring this out. I don't know. I don't bother Ben very much. I try to just let him do whatever he wants to do and just do his thing. So I haven't checked in with him on this, but I'll be straight up with you. Like, I want Europe to be the next show we do after this. But I don't know if that's going to, we'll go other places too. I want to go to Canada. I think even going to Mexico at some point would be pretty interesting, going to Mexico City, and other places in the United States as well. But in the meantime, I think that I would love to be in Europe. Haven't been there in a while. And Dustin, you've never been, right? Have you been to Europe?
No, in 2002, actually. My uncle lived in France.
So
unfortunately, it's France, but there was a lot of cool things I got to see. Go to the Louvre, of course.
Awesome.
Go to some of the gardens of the. I'm trying to remember what it's called. Where like the palace and there's like a big garden.
Versailles.
Yeah.
Oui.
And I went to Euro Disney, which was not that good.
Oh yeah.
Even as a second grader, I was like, it's all right.
Even the
Space
name
Mountain's
Euro,
cool though.
Even the name Euro Disney sounds like a discount.
Yeah, it does.
Tu parles français?
Oui. No.
Oh, okay.
No, definitely not.
All right. What was I talking about? Oh, yeah. So we'll go, I think, to Europe soon. Hopefully. We'll see. COVID's still like this thing that's prevalent. Seems like the rest of the world takes it more seriously, for better or for worse, than we do here in the States. So I don't know. I don't know what that's going to look like, but that is hopefully the idea. But we'll see you guys in Houston next for the most overrated games of all time. Can't wait for that. The whole crew is going to be there. All right. Let me see here. Surge wrote in. Oh, wait, no. We already did Surge's. I'm sorry.
We did Surge, yeah.
And actually, Surge wrote in with his name with an exclamation point.
Surge!
So it's more like Surge!
Yeah.
Thank you. Stephen Forgione wrote in. Now, some people have been saying this. I'm curious to see what you guys think. I think this has been a prevalent theory on Discord, especially. Hey, boys, this one's for the listeners. Can we please stop thinking of the most elaborate stories that will catch the ire of the host, thus getting them read on the show? I don't believe a listener watched Star Trek at 5 times speed. I certainly don't believe a listener left a shit stain on the couch while naked on a date. And all the date did was laugh it off. And Quince, I most definitely don't believe you brush your teeth like performing the worst ever fellatio, issuing a hearty stand down to the listeners and just stop making shit up for attention. Do you think these stories, Dustin, are invented out of whole cloth?
Well, okay. Colin, I don't know. I'm pretty sure you saw this. I don't know if it was a Patreon message or somebody left a comment somewhere. That is Quince's story a Seinfeld reference that you guys missed?
Yeah, like I got to be honest with you. I don't know that if that is a Seinfeld reference, which someone did say, that's like a throwaway reference from a show. I'm not saying it's not a relevant one, but I don't know what you're talking about. what
Yeah.
episode you're talking about.
I don't think that's a Seinfeld reference. I watch that show probably every day, sincerely, because it's the only thing that I can watch and not pay attention to and still be like vaguely stimulated. I don't think that's a Seinfeld reference.
Yeah, I feel like I
Okay.
would know that too. I mean, I grew up with the show. But anything can be possible. See, here's the thing. The Star Trek at 5 times speed, I believe that there's deep mental issues in this audience. So I believe that, right? That's
We
like
should try that though. Is it possible? That's what I was wondering. If you put a show on at 5x speed, is it even watchable at all?
Right. That's
We'd
true.
have to try
'Cause- right. I guess we would. It's like the Myth Hunters. What was it called? Mythbusters.
Mythbusters,
Yeah.
Where they would we're going to have to figure that out ourselves. But here's the thing I want to focus on: the shit stain on the couch.
Mm.
I want to remind you guys of a story that I hadn't thought about in a while, just to show you that insane things happen. And I totally believe that story. I'm not trying to put anyone out, but I'm going to tell a story about someone else here. But it's a story we've told on shows I've been on in the past. And it's so funny, and I hadn't thought about it in a long time. My old podcast host or co-host, Greg Miller, and I were going to a UFC fight. Do you know this story, Dustin? What I'm about to say?
I don't remember it yet. So keep
So
going.
we were going to watch a UFC fight at our friend Mark Ryan. Mark Ryan lived in San Francisco with the rest of us. And he is a big UFC fan. He was a very early MMA and UFC fan. So we would go to his house to watch things on pay-per-view or whatever. This was in 2008, I want to say. And we go out to eat beforehand. I think we eat pizza. And then we go to Mark Ryan's apartment. And when we're waiting, Greg has to go to the bathroom so badly and can't get into the building that he literally dropped his pants right there in front of the building, in front of the entrance, like, and shit right in the bushes. And wiped his ass with the receipt from dinner. And the funniest part of the story was that there was just this young Asian boy trying to get into the building as well. He was probably in his teens.
I do
or whatever.
remember this now.
And he was just standing there staring in horror. And it's one of my favorite, it's like one of my favorite memories. It's such a fucking crazy story. It really happened. And that's why I'm saying, like, it happened where this, my old friend Greg shit in a bush on the middle of the street in San Francisco in front of an apartment building with a teenage person just standing there also trying to get into the building, wiped with the receipt. And then we went up and he cleaned himself up, obviously, and did all that in the bathroom. But that story to me is classic. That's a classic story. And it's true. So why wouldn't it be true that you leave a shit stain on a couch when you're naked and then your date thinks that's funny? That's way more likely than the story I just told you. And the story I told you happened.
Yeah. The thing, I don't put any of this past human beings anymore. You know what I mean? Like, it would have to be something really, really outrageous for me not to believe it. And I feel like none of these really scratch the surface of outrageous to the point of beyond. But I mean, they could be made up, but they're within. I don't know, man. There are people. There are people who eat mattress foam.
Right.
I remember I walked into a Home Depot bathroom once because I was in Home Depot with like my parents, and this like 40-year-old guy was at the urinal, and he was doing like the shirt up, pants down thing at the urinal.
Oh, like drop like a little kid.
Yeah. It's like clearly like a clear. And I was just remember like, what?
That's a Chad move right there.
That's so
dominance.
crazy.
Yeah, that's like the handsome meme guy, you know?
Yeah. That's pure dominance right there. No one's fucking with that guy.
And so to me, it's like, that sounds pretty unbelievable. Like I wouldn't believe that for me.
Right.
You know, I wouldn't do that. But never underestimate the sick minds, you know?
I told a story just last week about how I went out to eat for pizza and then was running down the streets of San Francisco and shit my pants because I didn't make it in time. You know, these things happen. They really do happen to the best, obviously to the very best of us. Right?
Wow.
Thank you for writing in. Oh, by the way, let's have a gentleman's and a ladies' agreement out there. No made up stories.
Yeah.
I'm telling you earnestly from my heart the heinous things that have happened to me. Don't make shit up.
Yeah.
Because I know from experience how crazy it gets out there, and I barely leave my house anymore. Imagine the stories I would have if I still did things.
If you're not interesting, just accept that fact and let interesting people write in.
Right. It's okay not to be interesting.
Yeah, it's totally fine.
Sacred Symbols is sponsored by Chime, the mega useful banking app and suite of basic banking features. You can learn more about at chime.com/sacred. We talk about money a lot on Sacred Symbols because, well, gaming is an expensive hobby, and the gaming industry is the most supported entertainment medium in the entire world. But not everything with money has to be complex. Sure, we discuss mergers and acquisitions, fiscal quarterlies, factory audits, and so much more, but when it comes to your money, it couldn't be any simpler. You need to treat it with care. And this is where my friends at Chime come into play. See, Chime is a great tool for those of you out there who need basic banking options. With Chime, you can start a checking account and a savings account, and you can even get a debit card. And another thing you can do is get a credit card. Now, credit cards are only for responsible people that can pay off their debts. But if you're one of those people, you may want to consider using Chime's Credit Builder Visa credit card. Here's the rub. If you buy things with credit and then pay off your debt quickly, or better yet, immediately, this helps your credit score without injuring you financially. And with a stronger and stronger credit score, you'll soon be able to net that car loan you want, or that mortgage you're applying for, or even that job you seek that ran a background check on you. My friends, having a great credit score is essential, but you have to responsibly use credit to build that score, and this is a great way to do so. The Chime Credit Builder Visa credit card doesn't even require a large security deposit, nor is it subject to annual fees. So start your credit journey with Chime. Signing up only takes 2 minutes and doesn't affect your credit score. Get started at chime.com/sacred. That's chime.com/sacred. Again, for an award-winning banking app, checking and savings accounts, a debit card, and even a credit card, head to chime.com/sacred. The Chime Credit Builder Visa credit card is issued by Stride Bank N.A. pursuant to a license from Visa USA. Chime checking account and $200 qualifying direct deposit required to apply for the secured Chime Credit Builder Visa credit card. Regular on-time payment history can have a positive impact on your credit score. Impact the score may vary, and some users' scores may not improve. Out-of-network ATM withdrawal fees may apply, except at MoneyPass ATMs in a 7-Eleven or any Allpoint or Visa Plus Alliance ATM. Sacred Symbols is sponsored by Babbel, the award-winning language learning app used by millions, which you can discover for yourself at babbel.com/sacred. As the host of some popular podcasts, I'm what you might call a professional communicator, but I'm also monolingual. I have a mastery of English, yes, but even after 8 years of French classes through middle and high school and even in college, the reality is I was just going through the motions and I retained almost none of it. So when I tried Babbel for myself, I was eager to see how it approached learning a second language and how that might differ from my own scholastic experiences. The differences, as one might say, are night and day. First off, Babbel gives you a choice of 14 global languages like Spanish, Russian, and even English itself for non-native speakers. And all you need are 10-minute bursts to effectively use Babbel, learn from it, and take that knowledge with you. See, while Babbel's competitors are largely concocted by AI, Babbel is handcrafted by more than 150 language experts, and they flex their creative muscles in lots of different ways that keep you engaged. Stories, games, podcasts, videos, and even live classes. Upon discovering Babbel's suite of French offerings, my memory started to become piqued as I flipped through elementary lessons that were so very different from my experiences in school, learning out of old textbooks and taught by potentially the most unenthusiastic teachers I ever encountered. My friends, if you want to learn a second language or merely reinforce that multilingual side of yourself, Babbel is for you. Right now, get up to 55% off your subscription when you go to babbel.com/sacred. That's BABBEL.com/SACRED. Again, head to babbel.com/sacred for up to 55% off your subscription. Babbel, language for life. Alexander Javier Ospino wrote in.
What a name.
And said, that's beautiful, and said, Colin, last week you mentioned a desire to get into the Harry Potter universe. Have you considered listening to the audiobooks at 5 times speed?
Shut up.
That way you can hear all the information without any of that pesky comprehension or enjoyment getting in the way. In all honesty, this practice is insanity. The only time I listened to anything sped up was while prepping for the bar exam. Even then, I only did it for lessons reviewing topics that have already been covered in the course. I'm an attorney with a one-year-old, and I am not busy enough to even consider speeding up my media. How busy can people possibly be? This is another one of my issues. You're not that busy. You have too high demands for the time that you have. This is the difference, I think. Stop acting like you are all so busy. The only way I can listen to this podcast is at 3.5x. Come on, man.
Yeah.
It's not the fucking Manhattan Project. You know what I mean? Dustin?
I have a question for you, Colin, because I've been seeing this pop up on our Discord because this has come up. This is the third week in a row that we've talked about, the comprehensions, how fast you're listening to the show.
I'm infuriated by it, to be perfectly honest with you. Like, it really is something that's like deep welling inside of me.
I've seen reports of listeners say, I've been listening at 2x speed and I can't listen at 1x anymore because it sounds like you guys are talking too slow at that point. Their brains have switched over to this fast speed. In fact, I I recall somebody in person told me, "Oh yeah, your voice sounds kind of weird because I'm used to hearing you at 2x."
All right,
In person,
guys, I have a better idea. Why don't you run the podcast through an AI and get a transcript and read it?
Here's a good.
That way you can just fucking quickly
You can do that
browse
on
the
YouTube.
podcast.
YouTube will give you the transcript. Just
here's
read
a
it.
better idea. Here's a better idea. From now on, we'll just talk real slow.
Real slow.
And then the episodes will be 8 hours, and then you'll still have to waste 4 hours. Fuck you. Like I look, man, I'll be real, like circling back to that last question, of all the crazy stories I've heard, I actually don't believe the 5x speed thing. That's the one thing I don't. I just don't believe it's like 2x speed is incomprehensible. So 5 times is like fucked. So I don't know, man. This is it's getting annoying. You know?
Yeah. Annoy us about something else.
A moratorium on 5x speed.
Annoy us about this instead. Mr. Winter wrote in. Said, gentlemen, and I liked the way this one was written, so congratulations to you. That's why I picked it. I thought it was wonderful. I have found a distressing vernacular embellishment in the American vocabulary that disturbs all lobster backs in our very souls. I fear His Majesty King Charles has been kept awake at night and after sending word to Parliament has received no satisfaction from Black Rod. I had to look Black Rod up because I thought it was the dude in Parliament, but that's the speaker, I think. The Black Rod's the woman. I don't understand this exact position. The issue is the degradation of our most decadent profanity, the crisp and sharply tongued twat, or as they say it, twat. Whenever our slower cousins perform the word, it is delivered sloppily, dripping like sweat from a moistened sock. The fine steak of a word becomes nothing more than a sodden beef curtain, fumbled in the Yankee mouth. The French have a tradition of cataloging the correct pronunciation of words in a centralized language bureau, which prescribes errors and punishment and punishes disobedience. Pray we do not erect our empire and wash our navy across your shores for this sin against the English language. Take heed, you heathen swines and vagabonds. Twat is pronounced with a sharp T like bat, not a nimby-ot as in bot. Good day, sir. I hope this message was met with swift remedy in the colonies and brings a little lighthearted mirth in ominous times. Thank you, Mr. Winter. You may go back to the 18th century now, and we appreciate you very much.
Go write a fucking novel. What are you doing? This feels so unnecessarily verbose.
I know. Twat. Do we ever even use that word on the show? I know that word's not in my vocabulary. It's like not a word I use.
I hate that word. I think it sucks. I don't even think it's like particularly. I don't even think it's particularly good sounding. Like I think it's like a pretty lame. Like even when it's said in like its
Twat.
proper tone as like a British person. Like every time I've heard it, I was like, that is so like unpointed. It's insane. It doesn't even sound.
I find it in my mind illustrative, at least. Like I can see it.
Yeah.
And it's gross. Not a vagina itself, but the twat. When you're describing it as that, it's like this sloppy, gross. I can kind of see it, in my mind's eye.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I feel like, first of all, 2 things. Number 1, he sounds like, the wimpy guy on Hamilton that reads the thing from the king.
Mm-hmm.
This is what he sounds like. I imagine, gentlemen, I found a distressing vernacular, like that. Like, it's okay, take it easy. Second, talking about, sending, I don't know, the fucking cavalry or something. I don't know, your ships or whatever. Fucking bring it. Okay. The last thing that we're afraid of, Americans, is you guys, because we already know. We know how it turns out. We've done this song and dance. Go ahead, try it again, bitch. Try it.
Don't bring up the War of 1812, but I would argue that we kind of walked into that one. That was our fault.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't happen again. So I love the British personally, though. I have no problems with them. See, I've always thought we should do the reverse statehood. It's like, do you want to come with us? You can come with us. And we can have a state or actually 4 states in Europe. Be interesting. And then we can be the empire of liberty and freedom and weapons manufacturers.
It's so weird how big this country is in compared. Like I was looking at like how California is the size of Sweden. I'm just like, this is so deeply.
We are a land of plenty, my friend. No doubt about it. No doubt about it.
Maybe Mr. Winter and his pals over there should learn how to say bottle of water. Yeah.
Yeah.
Learn how to maybe try that first.
I'll
before
remind them too that the way we sound is closer to reality of the way the British sounded 300 years ago than they sound now. That is
that
true.
real?
Yes.
Hmm.
Yes. The people can read about the linguistic history here, but apparently like the very New England accent, which I'm very familiar with. I lived there for a long time.
Yeah.
That's apparently somewhat like the closest approximation of what people sounded like then.
Yeah. I mean,
that apparently came later.
What
as
are
I
you
understand
doing? What's going on here? Yeah, like
Yeah.
I think
the Lara Croft voice.
Yeah. What
The canonical Lara Croft voice.
There's
Toby!
Toby! There's an ancient tomb we've got to raid. I think I could believe that that's true. It's just a matter of like, how could we possibly know that?
Yeah, I don't know.
You know what I mean?
I'm not.
Like,
it could be made up for all I know.
I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like before video and audio were possible, I largely believe that most things that we know are true is like, I just accept that that's true, but I wouldn't be surprised. Like if somebody was like, guess what? We can go back in time to any point in history that we want. And we went back to like, I don't know, around Lincoln's presidency, and we found out that Lincoln was actually 2 children in like a top hat. He was like, I wouldn't even be shocked at that.
And when Booth shot Lincoln, they actually killed a 9-year-old boy named Benny.
I think a lot about how often history has like, because this must have happened at some point where like the accomplishments of like a single person in history were actually like a lot of probably like many different people, and they're like, it's really complicated. Let's just put them all into this guy.
Yeah, definitely. Like these people probably had assistants and lab worker, or not lab workers, but assistants, people doing math and
yeah. Like that seems plausible to me, and I'm just like, whatever. That wouldn't break my reality.
Yeah, it's as I understand it with the language situation, it's that the way British people sound now is a reflection of an aristocratic accent that was promulgated and replicated and kind of self-fulfilling.
Right.
That's how I understand it. And that happened a little later. But I could be wrong about that. I'm not saying they sound like the way I sound now then. I'm just saying that that's not the way we sounded.
What's the matter, darling? You've hardly touched your beans and microplastics.
It just seems so difficult to speak British English to me.
Yeah, it's so effortful.
Exactly. Just get it out. Just say it. And stop. Can we stop with the U's and everything, please? Can we? When people write in, including this one from Mr. Winter, it said, what was the word that was there was some word that was, spelled in English, British English, and Google Docs just corrected it. It's like, no, absolutely.
I love that.
Google. Just eradicate that completely. I don't ever want to see it again. Thank you, Mr. Winter, for writing in. Dylan Paulson wrote in and said, Colin, we all see you ripping your weed pen on video. Have you ever gotten too high on a show? No. I use medical marijuana, and what is so funny first?
It was so matter of fact.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I thought it was funny because you were just like, no, and then it was a long pause.
Here's the thing: is that everyone knows I've been smoking weed for a long time. I have medical marijuana, and I appreciate it, and I think I've had it for medical marijuana for a long time. And I think it's very useful in that regard, but I want everyone, we record these at 1:00 in the afternoon on Thursdays, Eastern time.
Yeah.
And I traditionally wake up so nervous that I will not be at my best if I don't get myself calmer sooner, which is why I've started smoking on the show, because it keeps my anxiety down and allows me to kind of find my center a little quicker than I would naturally be able to do so, because I'd usually go work out or do whatever, but I just don't have time to do it. So that's really the reason why I started smoking on the show, is it just keeps me a little more focused. It keeps that anxious energy down a little bit. And I don't think I've ever gotten too high to do something in many, many years, because if you cut me open like a cake, I'm probably 10% marijuana. at this point. So, I
Ew.
don't know. The last time I got too high, I don't know when that would be. Long time ago.
Somebody listening to this show who, if there's anybody listening to the show who works at like a bakery and they could do those like really realistic cakes, I need you to make a green cake made to look like Colin's real head, like as photorealistic as possible, and then you cut through it, and it's just like green. It's just like all weed inside.
Yeah,
that would be wonderful.
I hate those
weed
videos.
pinata.
There's videos of people like cutting through like an iPhone, and it's like a cake, but it looks real.
Can I tell you something, Chris? By the way, I totally forgot to say this earlier, but this reminded me of people attacking. So let me tell you where I'm going with this. I was thinking of when you were talking about using a knife on my head, like my head. It's like people would probably love to do that. Like people that don't like me, like But then I was thinking, and I had this idea in Discord yesterday. I love the creator clash idea. I think it's a really good idea. But what do you think of the idea of creators being able to fight annoying people in their audiences, or people in creator audiences being able to fight creators that they disagree with or don't like? I think that's an even crazier idea, where someone's like, I hate this motherfucker. Or like, imagine you had this person in your audience that just is always busting your balls and you're like, let's just fucking fight. You know?
Yeah.
Interesting idea. I'd like to see that happen. Or people in the audience fighting with each other as well.
Oh,
everyone should just start fighting, and then we can put it all on r/fight porn, where you'll find me every day.
Yeah.
Okay. Dustin, I have one for you. Dan Root wrote in and said, hey, CDD, this one is for Dustin. What is CDD? No, I don't understand what that means.
Typo.
Recently, my girlfriend has been watching the video episodes with me, and now all she wants to do is talk about you. This is starting to be a problem. When Friday comes around, she wants to see you. I may have to cancel my Patreon if this keeps up. Anyway, good day, gentlemen. And he says gentlemen singular, so I don't know who he's talking to there. Maybe me. Dustin, you are catching the eye, it looks like, of a female caller. What do you we haven't used that term in a while.
No.
What
deep lore.
What do you think?
Yeah, well, there's some missing information here, because it says all she wants to do is talk about you, but we don't know what the context is. It's presumably positive, because it later in the message says she wants to see you, but this could be within a blind rage. Maybe she wants to talk about how much she hates me or something like that. I'm guessing probably not, but I'm just throwing out there as a possibility. But I mean, I'm off the market. I'm not available. I'm sorry. And it sounds like, Dan, that this, it should be the same case for her. She shouldn't be available either. So maybe that's something you guys got to work out. But I don't know. Some of these write-ins coming in are getting a little suspicious. I don't know what to think about it. I told Holly about a few of them. She doesn't know what to think either. So
about you becoming some sort of sex object?
Yeah, I don't know. It's particularly strange in an audience that is 99.5% male. But I guess the people that are writing in are talking about their significant others that are just catching it, through being nearby. So I don't know.
It is my hope that Constellation will bring in more female listeners.
Yeah.
I've done shows like that where they were very popular with women. I think you have to get spouses, significant others, etc., through things that they want to listen to or talk about. Because I think it's like, I was laughing to myself the other day, like literally laughing, LOLing to myself, as it were, thinking about the write-in we had where the guy was saying that his wife went into the bathroom and there was like another woman in the bathroom, like crying because she was at our show or something like that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, that is so funny. That is one of the great stories. And then that was reiterated by like someone else had also, like, we have a backup corroboration about that story. Yeah. Like someone else is privy to that as well. We got to find a way for the female listener to get more acclimated. So hopefully the tales of shitting your pants and all that is doing, and the pronunciation of the word twat will get you nice and ingratiated.
Doing lots of legwork there.
Great.
All right, let's get into the topics at hand here for the show. Some smaller items I wanted to get into here first. Hogwarts Legacy is right around the corner. And Jordan Dito wrote in and said, hey boys, quick and easy question. What house do you all want to get sorted into in Hogwarts Legacy? Dustin, I don't know much about the houses of Harry Potter. I've been told that I am a Ravenclaw, but I don't know. I've been told by many people that don't know each other that I'm obviously a Ravenclaw, and I think it's because they're the more like bookish and weaker ones, as far as I understand.
They're from what I recall, they're pretty studious. That's the vibe that I remember from when I cared about Harry Potter, which is, I don't know, around 9/11. So I think that's probably accurate.
Hogwarts Harry Potter Hogwarts class, house. It's house. Hogwarts house. I want to know like more about them. Probably should have done this before. Like, okay, Gryffindor. This is according to the Harry Potter fandom.fandom.com.
Right.
Gryffindor value bravery, daring, nerve, and chivalry. And it says Hufflepuff valued hard work, dedication, patience, loyalty, and fair play. Ravenclaw valued intelligence, knowledge, curiosity, creativity, and wit. And Slytherin valued ambition, leadership, self-preservation, cunning, and resourcefulness. So that's what it all means. Slytherin just sounds like, Slytherin sounds like the evil one, though.
That's the problem, is that they have too much preconceived notions about the different houses because all the evil people are in Slytherin. But when you read out that description, it sounds like there was probably some very wise and good Slytherin out there.
Slytherins,
yes.
Yeah.
I've never known where I fit into this because here's the thing. It sounds like I might be a Hufflepuff, but they just sound dumb to me. Like that. I don't want to be a Hufflepuff. That sounds lame.
Their symbol is the badger, which is kind of cool. Actually.
That is cool. I do like that aspect of it, but I don't know.
But the other symbols are a lion, a raven, and a snake. So it is a little.
It's the worst one, clearly.
Hufflepuff.
Yeah.
Hufflepuff.
I think what is it? The badger is probably the only one there that would lose in a fight to all of the other three. You know?
Oh, definitely.
I could see a snake eating a badger.
I would agree.
Snakes eat people. So,
right.
You know,
that's exactly right. They do eat people. So based on, I was actually, I think I might actually do it today. Is I'm going to buy, I have it somewhere. I don't know because I had it when I was in high school, but buy some of these books and maybe start reading them soon. I'm so very curious about it. Like I remember really liking them. I just, for some reason, didn't continue.
Yeah.
It might have been that I had, at the time I read them, it might have been that I was caught up and then they just never, I don't know. I don't remember. It's been too long, but yeah. Hogwarts Legacy, I think February 7, something like that. Okay. Matthew Arnold wrote in and said, "Aloha, Sacred Crew. What are your opinions on the controversy surrounding Forspoken? Is the poor reception really due to racist gamers not wanting to play as a black female, or is it due to the game being lacking in areas? I mean, it's been getting pretty mild reviews across the board, and I think a great counterpoint is Half-Life Alyx. That is one of the most highly rated VR games around with both gamers and critics. I guess us racist gamers just can't stand looking at black characters, but have no problem literally embodying a black female." We talk about this quite extensively at the end of Defining Duke, or Sacred Symbols Cross-Defining Duke. But I felt like for people that are not patrons, we should probably touch on this because I don't think it's a game that any of us are going to play. That's fair to say, right? Is anyone playing Forspoken, or at least imminently?
No. Maybe when it's like way cheap, but like not
same. And we discuss a pretty deep feelings about it, like I said on the other show. But for those of you that aren't over there, I just feel like this is a game that kind of misses us. We're not that interested in it. I'm not trying to demean it or diminish it in any way other than that the dialogue that I've seen is cringy and bad, no doubt. Anyone trying to defend that and say it's like this, it's like this, it's like this, it's like context is everything. And in that context, it's not very good. But I'm also kind of astounded by the graphical downgrade of it. It doesn't look the same to me in its final product, which is disappointing. I have a lot of questions about Luminous Productions' future in Square Enix and as a studio entirely, and all of the rest. But Chris, what have you made about what's going on with Forspoken? We're also waiting on to see, we'll see in a couple of weeks how the game sold, but it just doesn't seem to be doing very well, and it's become, like so many things, is even getting sucked into the culture war, which is so lame because it really doesn't belong in the culture war. I mean, this game really, really Not that Hogwarts Legacy does, but this certainly doesn't. Just because a black woman is the protagonist, I mean, who cares?
Yeah, I question whether or not there even is a culture war, to be honest with you. But I do think that some.
Wait, I'm sorry. You mean that overall?
Sincerely, I think sincerely, a lot of this is engagement driven and monetary, and it's all fucking bullshit to me. But I'll be real. Like, I haven't seen like this idea of like people who don't like Forspoken are racist. I'm sure like maybe like some people on Twitter say that, but I have not seen a single like this is not a controversy that I'm even privy to. It seems to me that everybody's pretty much on the same page. They're like, yeah, the dialogue's not very good, and it's even in the review process, it's getting like mild, like high 60s, mid to low 70s. And it seems like I don't know. I haven't seen 2016 era outrage about it in the arena that I thought I would, or that it would exist in the same context back then. Like, it's not like this big symbol of like, oh, you hate black people if you don't like Forspoken. I personally haven't seen that, and I pay attention to this stuff. I don't know if you guys have seen that. Maybe like in like quote retweets to like Maddie's video.
I think Jaffe's gotten in some hot water, but I cannot tell. He got something like he said something that people wrote up about him saying that it.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
But then he denied it, and it seemed like a whole big mess. I didn't really understand it. So it's floating out there somewhat.
It doesn't seem to be a big thing to me. It's not like Hogwarts Legacy is like way bigger of a story. You know what I mean? As far as that kind of thing goes. Look, it just looks not good. It looks at most fine, and at worst very, very grating. It really is. I really think it's just that writing, man. Like, writing does a lot of games in. Like, storytelling does a lot of games in. Like, I think the main reason why I haven't, like, I've been wanting to start Neon White for a long time, but I just like, I know it's got that like visual novel kind of like anime thing going on, and I'm just like, can I do it? Like, can I do it? Like, I don't know.
It's an important component.
It's an important component. Like, and it might. By the way, I'm not saying anything about Neon White. I haven't played it yet, but it's a big deal to people. And if people think the dialogue looks terrible, they're perfectly reasonable to criticize it. I think a lot of the weird gaslighting about Maddie's tweet is wild though. Like, people are like, this isn't even that bad, and it's like, yeah, I mean, this isn't as bad as the other thing, but it exists in the context of the space. Like, that is part of the game that has all that other terrible dialogue in it. So like, yeah, this is like probably not the worst aspect of it, but it's part of something that's worse. So like, it's not like the one bad line in like a critically acclaimed movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's fucking bizarre that people just erase the context of every, like, this is what's only, it's like a lacking of object permanence almost.
Well, what I think is clear to me, and I think you're right, and Dustin, I'll kick it over to you, is I think the major thing working against Forspoken becoming more engaged in whatever culture situations are going on, or whether they're real or imagined, I guess, is the game just isn't worth it. Like, what it just seems like a game that no one's really going to get worked up over, because it's not. Yeah. It just I've been in this industry a long time. Sometimes my takes are off, no doubt about it. Sometimes my tastes are surprised when I play something that I didn't know I was going to like. But I've been playing games for a long ass time, and I know what I like and what I don't. And I can kind of look at things and say, and this game reminds me of that. It's like, that's why I said, like, my bigger questions have to do with Luminous Productions' future, why Sony was even interested in this game at all, if it came part and parcel with Final Fantasy 16, which might be possible. I mean, there are all sorts of different ideas here to pull at. So pull at the thread however you'd like.
Yeah, I feel like some of the toxicity around this game has to do with the fact that it is a game that PlayStation paid to have as an exclusive. And so you do have the toxic console warriors, whether it's the Xbox fans like overly going out of their way to bash it, or on the opposite end, the PlayStation side that's overly trying to praise it at the same time, or act like it's not a big deal, or like, oh, this isn't that bad. It's like, maybe the truth is somewhere in the middle, like these things normally are. I don't know. The whole thing about the racial aspect, I think that anyone who's looking at this that has any semblance of common sense knows that this isn't a race thing at all.
Yeah.
So I don't know. The main takeaway, I think the main point I made on the sacred symbols defining Duke, which again, I don't want to repeat myself for people who are going to listen to that also, but it's really just not a big issue because bad games are forgotten about. We're going to forget about this game. You know what? This comes out on Friday. Dead Space is out. No one cares about Forspoken anymore. It's no longer worth talking about because we're all talking about Dead Space. And then when Harry Potter comes out, Dead Space will be dead. And we'll talk about Harry Potter. And then the next game, it's just like, I don't know. It's the talk of the moment to see if, like, I don't know, we've talked about it, how people will find anything they possibly can to try to score points with their side. And this is just that in this moment. So I don't know. We'll see how this game actually shakes out. Maybe it'll do well in sales and maybe it'll do well in Japan. But for the moment, it just seems like a non-issue.
Yeah, I'm going to be keeping a very close eye on Luminous. We're going to talk a little bit about Square Enix later with one of their games that are getting shut down and one of their games as a service. And I just think that they're looking to cut costs, and Luminous Productions, I just don't think they're a very good team. I got to be honest with you. I didn't see it in Final Fantasy 15 and I've tried, and I just, at least from the outside, don't see it here. They take a long ass time to make their games too. And this is what you get. So it's a little confusing. I think this should be a stark reminder that, and this game comes from a different Square Enix. Remember, this game was probably greenlit 5 or 6 years ago and was in pre-production even before that. And so Square Enix is different now, in my opinion. And I think Square Enix realizes that they have to lean into Japan and to what makes them Japanese and what makes their games Japanese and not try to split the difference. It's not that you can't use Western protagonists or anything like that. I just think that the whole feel, the whole vibe, the Marvel Disney vibe of this game is not Square Enix. That vibe in Square Enix games comes from Disney and Kingdom Hearts. It shouldn't be in other games just because, in my opinion. And so got to rein it in a little bit. And so I think you will. I don't think Forspoken's representative of the modern Square Enix. And I feel bad that we don't have much more to say about the game just because I don't think we're providing a very good service to the audience on this game, but I just don't want to play things that we don't want to play. I'm not interested in doing that. It's just what is the point? So Forspoken's out there. You can enjoy it. We'd love to hear what you think about it, of course. So you can always write in. Matt J wrote into us and said, "Greetings, you fine young cannibals. You drive me crazy." That's them, right? That's the fine young cannibals.
I have no idea.
Like no one else. Though it's a tired topic, I'd love to hear your thoughts on Microsoft subpoenaing Sony for their financials in relation to Call of Duty. Do you think they will comply or resist? Do you think they will regret their claims now? I can't see Sony wanting to hand over any info to Microsoft, especially financials. Hope all is well. I'm eagerly awaiting my new beanie. Thanks, Micah. Yeah, remember, you can support us by buying our merch at laststandmedia.store, shipped right from this house that I'm in right now by the lovely Micah. Okay, so according to many sources, I'm going to Stephen TLoU here, who's the games editor at Axios. He writes that confirmation that Microsoft has subpoenaed Sony Interactive Entertainment as it tries to defend itself from an FTC lawsuit. And basically, the documentation that was released indicates that Microsoft has requested certain information from Sony, and Sony has simply requested more time to be able to comply with that. Some people are looking into the verbiage as being that they're going to get information at the game development and all that. I don't think that that's true at all. I think it's all financial information. However, in solidarity with our friend Rick Hogue, and in light of our complete inability to meaningfully dissect the stuff without him, I'm just going to put all legal talk on a moratorium until Hogue can come back to the show. We'll obviously examine this information from a gameplay and economic perspective and all of the rest, but Hogue's our legal guy. I dance with the ones that brought me always, and I have no interest in trying to get someone else on the show to go into this stuff or anything like that. So we're just going to put it away for now. Instead, we will move on to more interesting news. Spider-Man 2, comicbookmovie.com And they talked to Peter Parker actor Yuri Lowenthal. And here's what he apparently said about the new game. Not very much, but it's something to talk about. Quote, I've still got a little bit to do. It's a massive game, so I'm still doing a little bit of work. I know they're confident about their release date, and Insomniac has always been good about that. Obviously, I can't really talk about the game much, but I will tell you that it's astonishing. I'm so excited for you to play it. They know they've got big shoes to fill from the last 2 games, and they've done it. I just can't wait for people to play it. End quote. So we don't have very much. We don't have a date yet, but recent reiteration of a 2023 release date. I think we can assume this game is coming out in the fall and will be the big PlayStation marquee game this fall. PS5 anyway. PS4 is being kind of left behind for now. Chris, I want to hear from you. You're our resident Spider-Man mega fan. This isn't much to work on, but how do you feel? I mean, we get a little bit of a glimpse into what's going on. If he's still doing work, then the game isn't content complete yet.
No.
And that indicates that the game is maybe not totally set. I mean, he's even the one that puts it out there. They're really confident about their release date. And it's true. Insomniac has always been good about that, but not always. Resistance 3 was late by a year, for instance.
Yeah.
But that is a while ago. So what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's interesting because normally I would be maybe a little bit concerned about this, but given, Spider-Man, you don't really have to animate him talking. So I feel like a lot of, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like there's a lot of, you could work on a Spider-Man game up until maybe a couple weeks before launch doing voiceover stuff if you think of cool new things, and it might work totally fine because there's not really much work. It's not really much work that needs to get done into making it work. But also something to consider is that the previous Spider-Man PS4, I don't know if they did this for Miles, but I have to assume they did something similar. There are 2 voice tracks entirely for Peter Parker's dialogue based on whether or not he's relaxed or whether or not he's exerting himself swinging.
Oh, that's so interesting.
And so that's a lot of, that's if the game is bigger and there are more lines compiled with the fact that, there's a different intonation for there's basically 2 variants of the script going on, presumably outside of cutscenes, which are obviously set in stone. Or more set in stone than gameplay is. I think, he's probably just working a lot. There's probably a lot of stuff that they're probably still tweaking dialogue. Script writing is a longer process than people assume it is. I think sometimes scripts are rewritten on shooting day, and I feel like this is kind of an example of that. I'm not too worried about them. I think they'll hit the fall release. It's been, I think, long enough, and Insomniac's a really efficient studio. Also, selfishly, I have this on my draft, so I hope they come out this year.
Yeah, I think
good energy.
They reiterated it recently, so yeah. They did say 2023 a while ago, and then that reiteration, Dustin, really did solidify it for me too. You make a great point, Chris, that this could just be pickup lines and all of the rest, and it could be that. When I think of them doing work, I guess I always just think of mocap and stuff like that, but it is much more than that, and that's just a very limited part of it. And he might not even be doing the mocap for all we know in the spider suit. So, Dustin, any thoughts here on just scant Spider-Man 2 news? I will say, throwing it over to you, I'm shocked by how quiet they're being about this game. This game is almost certainly less than a year away. We don't know anything. We haven't seen a goddamn thing about it. I have a great feeling about it, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, and clearly people are really excited about this game just in the fact that I think it's worth talking about, but it's really not a lot. But I saw this written up all over the place. It's just these little details, and people just want to know anything they can about this game because of how excited they are for it. And it makes sense. I mean, Spider-Man right now is absolutely huge. And so clearly this game is going to be, I wonder from a sales perspective what this is going to do, just because we saw that how insane God of War was for PlayStation. I would imagine that this game could beat it in terms of the initial day one sales.
Yeah.
Even being only on PS5. I mean, who isn't interested in this game? I feel like everybody, whether you're into, JRPGs or more or like shooters or whatever, even if you do have that specific type that you like, I just feel like this game is so appealing on so many levels. Like, this is going to be huge. So I'm excited. I wonder when we'll see more though. Maybe, I don't know, people are already starting to talk about E3 and what that will look like. So we haven't seen a proper showcase from Sony in a long time. And maybe it's about time. We'll see.
Yeah, that would be nice. Xbox revealed at their recent showcase or their recent stream that they will be at E3. And Sony was really one of the first ones to bail on E3. I wonder if they would be willing to go back or if they're happy staying quiet. And I guess my big question here with Spider-Man 2 is just what do they gain by showing it early? Probably nothing.
Yeah.
They could literally probably sell it without showing it.
That would be awesome.
I mean, that would be awesome. I would be mind boggled if a studio was able to do that. I mean, I loved at Xbox's showcase. What is it? Hi-Fi Rush from Tango Gameworks.
Yeah.
A smaller rhythm action game that was released day and date on totally sight unseen. It's possible. I mean, Sony did that with Entwined and smaller games like that, but the bigger the games get and the more people are involved in them, especially external studios, the harder the secrets are to keep. But that would be fucking cool, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love that kind of confidence to be like, you're going to play it and you're going to like it. We're not going to show you anything. You know?
Yeah. It's cool.
It would, of course, be ruined. I guess the argument against that level of marketing is that, well, you will relinquish all marketing. And then the second the game's in the wild, people are just going to show it off and you don't get the gain and you don't get to control that at all. And that's true. But
just make a good game.
Indeed. Okay. Let's move on here. I wanted to make just quick note of this. Washington Post, gamesindustry.biz is reporting this, but everyone saw this, I think, in real time. The Washington Post, the famous American paper, I think the second biggest American paper after New York Times. I think the Wall Street Journal and LA Times are after it. They laid off quite a few people and shut some openings and are truncating as much of the economy is in this, what is probably going to be a tumultuous economic year. And so their launcher subsection at the Washington Post has closed down. That launcher subsection employs friend of the show and personal friend, Gene Park. And I'm happy to tell anyone in case they didn't see, Gene survived. I actually immediately texted Gene when I saw the news. We were actually recording when it happened. And I texted him when we were, and I was like, are you okay? And he told me that he didn't get laid off. So I let my team know that so that they weren't worried, but I wanted to obviously let him tell everyone, which he did later that day on his own time. So that's a sad news, but I have a few things to say about this. And I'm wondering if you guys have anything you want to say about it. I thought, and I told Gene this, that right when it happened, I was like, this is a good thing, I think, because especially with you surviving in that Washington Post othered gaming content, which was a huge mistake. And Gene can now just be doing games coverage for the Washington Post under their entertainment vertical, which is where it should always be. And that will legitimize it and help further legitimize games amongst people that are still wary about their entertainment value or their economic realities. And so you don't want to have a separate other gaming section at the Washington Post or the New York Times or the LA Times, or whatever. You want to have an entertainment section that includes video games. And this is an opportunity for them to do that right. Anyone that told them that gave them this advice was dumb. They were wrong. However, I've been seeing a lot of people talking a great deal as layoffs are happening around the industry about the value of games journalism and people kind of lamenting it. But it seems to be very insular. And I feel like this is a long time coming. Like what's happening right now. You're not happy to see it. You don't want people to see losing their jobs, but the game of musical chairs is in an urgent state right now in games journalism and in games media. The positions are eroding at a rate so rapidly that there's no way that many of these people will be able to stay in the industry that are getting laid off and getting let go. And it brings up the question of how much of this was inexorable and economic, how much of this is the fault of the outlets themselves, how much of it is even the fault of the people that were writing at these outlets that squandered a lot of these outlets' good names and the momentum that were built by other staffs before them. And so I think there's a lot to talk about here. But Dustin, I'm wondering if you have any thoughts about the Washington Post shutting a launcher.
Yeah, I think you're right about the idea of bringing games into the normal entertainment section. It's one of those, it kind of reminds me of how when we first started to get download games, we separated them into indie games. It's like, no, these are just games. And now with video games being as popular as they are, and you see stuff like the Game Awards just completely smash the Oscars in view count and stuff like that, it's clear that video games arguably are the dominant entertainment medium. So yeah, it would make sense that you don't want to segue into this separate thing. But I just wonder, you're talking about how, this is an industry wide thing, and the musical chair is going on about like people trying to figure out where they're going to go next, but it seems like everyone is laying off at the same time. I just wonder, is it that people, like you said, there's just been a degradation in quality at these sites that people no longer want to read about games coverage? Or is it just simply the fact that people don't read about video games? The audience that checks out games, because it is such a visual medium, they don't want to read about it. They want to go on YouTube. They want to watch a video. They want to see it before them. And I get that. You can get a feel for a game through the written word, but you really get it from seeing it and hearing someone talk about it in depth in a conversational way, like we often do. So it's one of those things that it is unfortunate, because I think there's a lot of good things that can come from written stuff, but I also understand why it just simply isn't appealing enough anymore to facilitate all these different people having jobs. So I don't know that it's surprising all at once, but it's not surprising, and that this is the natural shift that has been happening for years and years and years. It's just, with the current state of the economy, it just seems like it's kind of happening all at once.
Chris, do you have anything you want to add here? I will say that I did email someone at Kotaku to try to talk about this, and it was a pretty forward email, because I don't like to waste people's time. I have questions. I want to ask things. I saw someone over there named Luke. Why can't I think of his last name right now? I should know it. I'm looking up the email right now. Let's see. Luke Plunkett. And I emailed, and he said something on Twitter that I thought was strange. He said, and I'm pulling it up now. Sorry, I should have been more prepared. He says, I know times are tough, but if you want good stuff to read, you're going to have to start paying for it. The advertiser-supported internet is rotten wood, and the whole thing is about to come down. And then he went on to say other things about this, that, and the other thing. And I emailed him, and I'm like, I'm curious why you say that. It sounds like you've just lived under a rock for years. What do you think is going on? You don't think there's fan-funded stuff has been going on for more than 10 years. Giant Bomb was the progenitor of that. And you're like, well, people are going to have to start paying for it. It's like, what the fuck are you talking? People have been by the millions on Twitch, on YouTube, on Patreon.
Yeah.
Buying merch and listening through podcast services and subscribing and all these things. Like, what are you, crazy? And I tried to ask, and I was polite, but it was like, why would people pay for your guys' work when they're not paying for it now? Like, the boat has sailed. Because I saw this thing where people are talking. I don't know if people know do you know, Chris, you would know this, the website Defector. Are you aware of this website?
I am aware of it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And Dustin, I don't know if you know it too.
Yeah. They used to be part of the Gawker.
Right. They're
Empire,
Deadspin.
Right?
They're like the Deadspin people.
That's it. Yeah.
Deadspin still exists, but it's like kind of this phantom brand now. And these guys all moved onto a site called Defector. And I've been seeing people being like, someone's got to make a video games Defector. And I'm like, a video games Defector? With who? Like, Deadspin had a really famous staff. They were able to get venture capital and go and spin off and do something different. And this was also years ago. And instead of doing the same thing, Kotaku just wrote about it. That ship has sailed. And so I asked a bunch of these different questions and invited him on the show and all that. And the answer I got was, Colin, go fuck yourself. That was what was written. So I'll leave Luke Plunkett alone. But I would love to talk to someone in the industry about this idea of fan funding as if it's this new idea. They've ignored so much of what is going on in the games industry and have been so snarky towards all new developments that they don't realize that they're done. And that they have this idea where it's impossible for them to really do it now. You're going to go pay for Kotaku, the staff of Kotaku? You don't even want to read Kotaku when it's free.
Yeah.
I guess I just don't understand why people don't get that it does in some. See, I think I have an interesting advantage in this conversation in that I come from that world. I come from the traditional media world, and I wasn't there for a minute. I was there for a long time. Like, since I was 17. until I was in my early 30s.
Yeah.
And I know it, and I know how it changed. And one of the questions I asked him in the email was, I was like, do you feel like Kotaku is at a disadvantage with just simple news gathering? Because Kotaku used to be a source of news. I remember when Kotaku was so notorious about breaking news that they were blacklisted by a bunch of companies all at once. And people loved it. And I was talking to some friends behind the scenes where I was like, Kotaku actually used to be pretty good. It was like a very punchy, asshole-ish website that kind of invoked that Gawker mentality. But I asked him, I'm like, Sacred Symbols breaks more news than Kotaku does. And that's to me, that's a weird imbalance and a sign of the times. What do you think of that? And of course, no answer except for the go fuck yourself answer, which is fine. But here's the thing, is that I think there is some inexorable trends that are eliminating this stuff, no doubt. And then there's some just masthead failures where websites didn't watch out for themselves and the staffs that they hired. And I think this is a major part of it, is everyone that works at these websites are all the same, with very rare exception. They have the same opinions. They say the same exact things. They're all friendly with each other. They're all friendly with everyone in the industry. They don't challenge anything or try to turn over the cart or anything like that. So when you're laying people off, when people used to get laid off at IGN 10 or 15 years ago, people cared. And I'm not trying to be an asshole, but like when Ryan Clements, who's a friend of mine, got laid off at IGN, it was a big deal. People were really upset about it. And I remember, I look now and I'm like, well, no one's identified with you working at these sites. You're all kind of interchangeable parts. So it's not only the elimination of the jobs in the heads, but the inability to do the job right. Me and a bunch of people that worked at IGN during its golden era left the website in a really great shape for people. And it was murdering. And anyone who's contributed to its downfall deserves some of the blame too, because it wasn't always like this. And blaming it only on the bosses or only on money and blah, 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 I think is just missing the forest for the trees. And I do want to say this in parting, and people just got to keep this in mind. Stop making arguments about companies where it's like, they had X amount in revenue and they did this. I don't care how much revenue they had. That's not relevant. Revenue is not relevant. Profit, operating income is relevant. So I hate when people say, like, you know, a really good example of this is Apple didn't lay anyone off in this recent layoff. And Tim Cook the CEO took a $50 million pay cut. And people were like, they didn't have any layoffs because Tim Cook took a $50 million pay cut. And I'm like, $50 million will pay a few hundred people at Apple for 1 year. So I don't know what you're talking about. Like, mm-hmm. You know, like people just don't quite understand the operations of a business. It's deeper than that. I'm not saying some of these companies couldn't afford to keep people on, but you don't focus on you focus on the monies being made after expenses, not revenue. Amazon had tons of revenue for 20 years and made $0 in income, operating income, zero. You can't look at it through that lens. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Not apropos of nothing. Okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to throw this out here. PlayStation Lifestyle is reporting that Skull and Bones pre-orders are being refunded and no longer on sale on the PlayStation Store. What do you think of this, Chris? I mean, my mind went to my mind immediately went to a conspiratorial place, because the sunk cost fallacy with this game is so deep at this point that I actually think it would be stupid for them not to release it. I mean, you've come so far. The game's obviously in some sort of playable state. You might as well release it. So the first thought I had was, oh, maybe they saw the reaction to the gameplay and were like, we should just cancel this. But then I thought about it for just a moment and I'm like, no. Free to play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I think this game is contractually obligated to exist largely because there's like a governmental aspect to it.
Right.
Because I know that there's like
in Singapore, right?
Yeah, the government in Singapore is in part funding this, or is in some way very, very integral to the production of this title, and so it just kind of has to come out. And I think that's probably a pretty astute observation. That's what I thought too when I first saw this. When I was reading through the doc, I was like, oh, it's going free. Like there's no reason other than like. Because you could just update this. If the game was like dramatically different than it was when pre-orders went live, you wouldn't need to like undo the pre-order. That's like a skew. Let's say that has nothing to do with anything. The only reason you would take pre-orders away is if pre-orders no longer applied because there's nothing to pay for. So and honestly, it's their only shot at anything. It's their only shot at people to get into this game is if it's free to play. Because like the comments on YouTube are not going well. Nobody on Twitter is talking about it in any way that's more than just kind of like, what is this? Why did this take so long? The conversation around this game is, if it's not negative, it's just non-existent. And I think they know that. I think they saw the reception to that, their most recent showcase, and they understand that it's underwhelming because you have to be really blind not to know that. This isn't a situation where it's like, Call of Duty gets like 1 million dislikes on a trailer and it's still Call of Duty, so it sells millions of units anyway. And people kind of like misread the situation as if like, oh man, Call of Duty's dead now because the YouTube video got 1 million dislikes. It's like, no. This is more than just 1 million dislikes. This is not in the conversation at all. And I think they know that. We know that. And this is, and I think they're somewhat wise enough to understand that at this point, they've come too far to cancel, and they've also come too far to charge for a game that no one's interested in. And so this is probably their best shot. I still don't think it's going to be massively successful, but this is without a doubt like easily the best decision for this title is for it to go free to play. They're probably going to work on some weird monetization aspect to it. I wouldn't be surprised if that monetization aspect is actually like really, really enticing in comparison to a lot of other free. They're going to do everything they can to make this as enticing as possible because they know they have to. Because there's just no interest in this, man.
No, there isn't. And that the thing I was thinking too, and Dustin, I'll throw it over to you, is for someone to know this, they would have had to have pre-ordered it. So who were you?
Who are you?
Who did it? Who did it? Do you have anything you want to say, Dustin?
I think that the theory around it being free to play makes a lot of sense. But I'm looking at the PlayStation Store because I had this popped in my mind. It seems to be correct. So if I'm wrong, feel free to leave a comment and let me know. But I wonder if PlayStation and other stores as well have a policy that you cannot pre-order a game that doesn't have a release date. Because I'm looking at the other games that you can currently pre-order on PlayStation, and all of them have release dates. So I don't know if that's a policy thing on the store level, but I can't find an example of any of these games that don't have them.
Fair enough. We'll see. Skull and Bones this spring, I think. Okay. Kyle Leverton wrote into us on Patreon, says, hey, CDC. Colin, did you see that Super Stardust Portable is the first retro game on PS5 to get trophies added retroactively? Should have launched with them, but it's certainly a step in the right direction. Love you. Love you too, Kyle. I did see this. This was surprising news that was making the rounds in trophy circles. Super Stardust Portable, which is available on PlayStation Plus, what is it, Premium, I think. I don't think you can buy it a la carte. Yeah. Had trophies added to it retroactively, even though it came out months ago. And this is, of course, the PSP original, I think, is from 2008. What's kind of shitty about these trophies is the trophy list is really great, but I was reading on PSN Profiles forums that you can use the rewind feature to get the trophies. So like if you're trying to do like the endless mode 10-minute trophy and you die, just rewind and just don't die and then just keep going. So it's a little bit stupid. Also, the pillow on this chair. I fucking hate the pillow on this chair. The magnetic pillow. It's just always getting snagged and falling off. Dumb fucking pillow.
Called out. Secret Lab.
Anyway, just wanted to throw that out there. That does have trophies. People were asking, is this the first game to get trophies so much more after release? And in this scheme, it is. Although, remember, games like Metal Gear Solid 4 were patched for trophies. I want to say it was like literally 5 years later or something like that. So sometimes it does take time, but this is a great sign. It shouldn't have launched, like you said, Kyle, without trophies in the first place, especially coming from second or now first party. All right, a couple of other quick pieces of news. Mundfish announces that Atomic Heart is gold and will indeed launch on February 21st. Chris, vibe check Atomic Heart.
I don't know. I'm excited about it, but I'm also cautious because I've been let down by really, really flashy trailers before. And I'm really excited about this. And that tells me that I shouldn't be, you know what I mean? Like, it's almost like this psychological thing that I've gotten used to from games media now, where like, oh, that trailer looks great. And then I play it and it's like, oh, okay. So I don't think it looks bad. I think it looks great. I'm really excited about it. However, unfortunately, the reality of the industry is oftentimes things don't live up to expectations, and so I'm preparing myself for that worst case scenario. You know, what's the phrase? Hope for the best, prepare for the worst.
Right, exactly.
That's how I'm feeling about it. But I'm looking forward to it. I'm very stoked to see what they've done. I hope it runs well. That's like it's my main concern about a lot of new titles. It's like, because I can't. We talked about this on Sacred Symbols Defining Duke. You got to hit a frame rate bar for me. Otherwise, it's not going to be a good time.
Yeah, they're making bold claims, and as we discussed, Dustin, last week, you're wary of these claims. Well, they might be playing fast and loose. But what's your vibe check?
Yeah, I think that them saying just 4K sounded a little, dishonest, even though it will output resolution at 4K. It just will be upscaled. But anyway, I am excited about this game. I think that the recent previews that came out, I tried to not look at them too much, but they did seem overall very positive. It was weird because some of them were saying that it felt like a spiritual successor to BioShock, and other previews said, if you think this is going to be like BioShock, you're wrong. Like, it's very different. So I really don't know what to expect.
Yeah.
I think that either way, even if this game is maybe not, let's say it's like a 7, like maybe it's a little clunky or whatever, from what I've seen from the trailers, it will at the very least be really interesting visually. And for that reason, I am excited to at least see the world somewhat. This is one of those games I'm willing to put up with it maybe not being as great. So either way, I'm excited, and not too long now. That'll be, this is the problem, comes out the week we're going to Texas.
Yeah, that's an inconvenient time for us to be traveling, but it is what it is. Because PSVR 2, more importantly, comes out that week as well.
Yeah.
All right. Or the 24th. I don't know if it's the same week or no, that is the same week. Okay. Just one more thing. GamesIndustry.biz reported this. This kind of flew under the radar. I didn't see anyone picking this news up, but Detroit Become Human, the one-time 2019 PS4 exclusive that's now on PC, has surpassed 8 million copies sold, including 2.5 million copies on PC. The bigger thing that I thought was interesting here was that means 5.5 million copies on PS4. Not too bad for a game like Detroit. And I've always liked Detroit. If it wasn't for, Red Dead was 2018. Detroit might have been my game. No, if it wasn't for Fell Seal that year, I think Detroit was going to be my game of the year. I think that's how my memory serves. So I've always been pretty high on Detroit, and I think the game's really great. But Dustin, these years later, what do you make of Detroit?
I think that Detroit overall is a really good game. There's some stuff in it that I think is kind of stupid, but I really do like a lot of the characters. Particularly, I think about Connor was a really, really interesting and cool character. And I don't know, I'm sad that they're not in the Sony fold anymore, because I did find that game to be really interesting. I've never played Heavy Rain. So
oh wow, you should.
That's something I probably should do at some point.
Yeah, Heavy Rain's awesome. I mean, I don't know. It's been a while. I platinumed Heavy Rain, which was a very difficult platinum. Very, very annoying to get. And at the time, 2010, it was pretty impressive. But I don't know how it stands up today. I wouldn't dare to guess. But at the time, it was awesome. Chris, what are your thoughts on Detroit these years later?
Jason, I think it's I don't know. It's a tricky one, because I did like it, and I think it's a very, very polished, very, very quality, very high quality game. It's like a very easy game to recommend, but it's simultaneously in that genre of game that I'm not huge on, which is kind of like this kind of interactive movie kind of format that, I mean, that studio has been doing for a very, very long time. It's interesting, and it's engaging, and it's cool, and it's different than most other things, but I'm definitely like a kinetic kind of gameplay person. And so it's not at the top of my personal list, but it's an easy recommend if you haven't played Detroit Become Human. It's a really interesting story. There's a lot of there's some cageisms in there where it's a little heavy-handed and a little preachy sometimes, but I think of all the games that I played from that genre and from that studio especially, I think Detroit's probably the best one. I don't think that's necessarily like a contra. I don't know how.
No, I would agree with you. Yeah, I think so too.
I think it masks some of the janky, awkward writing from previous, movie like interactive cinematic kind of experiences. It masks it a lot better. It's still there, but like I'm a lot more forgiving of it in Detroit Become Human because it's done so well. It looks really good. Like graphically, it's really gorgeous. The actors are really, really good at what they're doing. It's a solid that type of game.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty inspirational game to probably people in that space that want to make just very cinematic games, and I'm very interested to see what they do next. I think Quantic Dream gets a bad rap for some reason. I don't know why people in the industry are so fixated on them in a negative way, especially David Cage. Just that he's always been under attack. And the studio has always been under attack. And I've even had an awkward, like I said on the show, I've had an awkward interaction with him in person. But I think he's a great writer, and I like their games. Beyond Two Souls, I'd like to go back to one day. I didn't like it when I played it, but that was in 2013. That was around the time the PS4 came out. Okay, and there are two other things that broke I'll just talk about real quick while we've been talking. Number one, Reuters reports briefly that Sony's gaming chief met EU's Vestager on Microsoft's Activision deal. And it says Sony's gaming chief, Jim Ryan, met EU antitrust chief Margaret Vestager, but Margaret's spelled weird, on Wednesday to discuss, it's probably some other name that I don't know, to discuss Microsoft's $69 billion bid for Call of Duty maker Activision Blizzard. A person familiar with the matter said on Thursday. The meeting came as the EU competition watchdog prepares to warn Microsoft this week about the potential anti-competitive effects of the US software giant and Xbox maker's acquisition is in the biggest gaming industry deal in history. Microsoft is looking to Activision to help it compete better with leaders Tencent and Sony. The latter has criticized the deal and even called for a regulatory veto. The person declined to provide details of the discussion between Ryan and Vestager. The European Commission, which is scheduled to rule on the deal by April 11th, did not immediately respond to requests for comment. So there's that small development.
Did they go to dinner?
Maybe.
Where did they go?
Who knows?
What kind of dinner do you discuss the $69 billion deal?
Applebee's.
Cheeky Nando's, since they were maybe in England.
Yeah.
Go get a cheeky Nando's. And then the other thing here, this is just small news, is that there's a studio called Studio Gobo, which is a British support studio that tweeted, "We're thrilled to share that Studio Gobo is now a Guerrilla co-development partner on the Horizon universe and that they're hiring for a bunch of positions. You can go to their website and check it out." I was reading about them a little bit, and they have this section of their website called Our Friends. So people they've worked with and collaborated with on the back end. Ubisoft, WB, Disney, Lucas, Hasbro, Microsoft, Arcane, Bethesda, Tencent, et cetera, et cetera. So a well-established support team. Not entirely sure why to announce that other than to attract talent to work to your studio because they're working on Horizon, of course, which is a cool thing. We'll see what comes of that and what Horizon game they're even working on. Presumably the Horizon multiplayer game?
Yeah, probably.
I don't know. Okay, let's get into what we're playing. I'll go first real quick and just get it out of the way. I platinumed Evil West. I ended up beating the game 3 total times. And that was my 136th platinum. There's really nothing I have to say about it that I haven't already said. I recommend it. I think it's really fun. Beautiful. Yeah. I put some, if you want to see on Discord, I put some screenshots of my experience on there just to show the variety of landscapes that you go through in your vampire hunting travails. So that's all I played, and we'll have more to say next week when I start playing Dead Space. It's preloaded, but we don't get games early, so we are waiting like everyone else. Dustin, let's go on to you.
Yeah. So I wanted to comment on one thing from last week. I misspoke, but it's not a huge detail, but it is interesting in that, Colin, I told you Persona 4 Golden was 4K 60 on PlayStation. It's not. It is just a basic PS4 app at 1080p 60, which is disappointing and kind of interesting in that in this situation, Xbox has a way superior version of both of these games that is not only a Series X and S app, but also runs at 4K 120 if you have it. So this is pretty annoying to me as a Persona fan that I don't know. I wonder what the situation was. Obviously, Xbox came in and paid for these games to be ported and then put on Game Pass, but it seems odd that they wouldn't have some kind of console parity between the two, especially since it's a re-release of an old game. But a weird thing overall, something to consider from Sega. I saw a lot of people reach out to me about this, and it is weird for sure. As far as what I'm playing this week, it's been all Fire Emblem Engage, and this game rules. I really, really like this game. So this is obviously Switch exclusive, it's a Switch only game, but it is a tactical RPG game where you are moving characters around on a grid and engaging in tactical combat. And what's nice about this is that this is a Switch game that knows its limitations and actually looks really good. It obviously isn't going to be any kind of technical showpiece. It doesn't run at 60 frames, but for a game like this, it actually it's fine. Obviously 60 FPS would be better, but having it at 30 is no problem. And it's been interesting playing it coming from Three Houses, which had a lot more Persona style elements added into the mix. And they ended up taking away a lot of that, which has a lot of people excited, like more traditional fans of the series. I've only played Three Houses, so I don't have a lot to compare it to. But overall, I'm really enjoying it. The story is a bit more Saturday morning cartoon than Three Houses, which was like this really awesome political, this very awesome political story that had a lot of different twists and turns that really surprised me for a game like this. But the most surprising thing of all to tell you guys is that from playing this game, it's totally obvious. Nintendo loves MILFs. This game is MILF forward, I would say.
Nice.
In a shocking degree. You meet your mom at the beginning of the game, and I stopped because Holly is playing this game also, and I said, "What is going on here? This is, I mean, I'm not going to say it's unacceptable, but this just seems outrageous." And then again, the second mom you meet in the game, I'll post a picture or something on Twitter. I'll respond
I'm looking it up right now.
Yeah. It's let's see.
Does she have like a white outfit on and like gold headpiece?
I'm trying to remember. Dragon Queen Fire Emblem. But yeah. So Nintendo isn't even hiding it anymore. And here's the thing. This is a game clearly made by MILF lovers, maybe even for MILF lovers. So if that is something that intrigues you, then I just want to throw that out there. Consider it. And here, I've got a picture for you guys.
Was Rosalina a MILF in Super Mario Galaxy?
I don't think she's a mom.
Well, she was the mom of the little stars, right?
Oh, that is true. Is that really a mom, though?
I don't know.
I sent you guys a picture just for scientific research. So
where is it?
It's in the chat.
Why don't I see things in the chat?
I don't know. Zencaster has decided you are.
I'm sealed
Chris,
off.
Can you see it?
I actually don't see it either.
Oh, dang. Maybe I'm sealed off from you guys.
Does she have a white outfit on with like gold? Is she blue hair? Yeah, I'm looking at a picture of her right now. And that's out of control. That's out of control.
Got some interesting characteristics, a lot of interesting plot points to it. So it's worth considering.
Is Rosalina a mom?
Is that what you're Googling?
Yeah.
You're Googling, is Rosalina a mom?
Rosalina is the adoptive mother of Loomis, a fictional species of stars in the game.
Doesn't count.
Yeah, adopted moms who adopt aren't real moms.
Fair enough.
Because I posted a picture in the Discord too.
Is that the implication of that? What is Fire Emblem even? Like, what is this?
I don't know.
I think you should find out.
That's fine.
If it intrigues you.
I played Fire Emblem a little bit most recently in quotes when it came to 3DS. So that was a long time ago. Awakening, right?
A lot of people say it's the best one. I've never played.
This isn't even.
Yeah, I wasn't into it at all.
This isn't even particularly. I don't know. This is pretty. This seems pretty tame to me.
Chris. That's your mom in the game. What's funny is that you don't remember her. Like the main character has amnesia, and then this person says, "Hey, I'm your mom." I'm sure that was
a little Back to the Future vibe, maybe.
It's conflicting experience. Just saying.
Well, oh my god. Well,
fair enough. That's enough out of you. Thank you, Chris. What are you playing?
Yeah, so still running through Final Fantasy VII Remake. As I get closer to where I was, it does become a little bit more frustrating because I am remembering more of the stuff that I already know is happening. So like I am kind of like my eyes are a little bit glazed when I'm going through. There's a lot of side quests like finding a cat or something, and I'm like.
Dude, literally, I forgot about this. Cloud's like, this sucks. He's holding a cat and he's like, this sucks. I'm like, that's exactly how I feel, Cloud.
Yeah, exactly.
Side mission sucks.
Yeah, but I just want to get back to like where I was. It is a little frustrating going through like the beginning rigmarole again because you have so little, like your party's not established. You don't have a lot of abilities. You haven't really like leveled up in any real meaningful way, and I know what that's like. So like starting over again has been a little bit. It's been a little tedious, but I'm getting through it. I still the soundtrack of Final Fantasy VII is so goddamn good. I'm pretty sure it's like the main thing that's pulling me through this kind of, been there, done that kind of attitude where it's like, okay, yeah, I've done this already, but this soundtrack is fire. So I'm still going through that.
Someone wrote in about your problem with the save. Is that it's what you need to do potentially? Maybe you already considered this. Is that because Sony, you can't transfer a PS4 save, won't work on a PS5 game. You need to download the PS4 version of Final Fantasy VII Remake, download your cloud save, and then the PS5 version, there's an option to convert your save over to the PS5 version of the game. Is this headache worth the replay that you've already done so far?
I mean, maybe. I'm That is so annoying. It made sense when
someone wrote that in.
That pisses me off. So I have to download the older version so that I can upload that version save, or so that I can download that version save, then upload it to a converter so that I can.
Yeah.
Sony needs to figure this shit out. This is really irritating. Like, especially for a console that is more synonymous with like story-driven games and like especially like JRPGs, which are like fucking long. You'd think that something like this would be a lot more seamless.
Yes.
Be thankful there is a converter. Some games don't even have it. They just said, fuck it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so.
Persona 5, there's no way to... first of all, there's no way to upgrade the game from the PS4 to the PS5 version. And there's also no way to convert your save.
All right, well,
so
I'll look into that then. I didn't know that was even... I didn't even consider that because that seems so...
Why would you, though, Chris? Really,
insane.
Why would you consider that?
Yeah, if I'm gonna... Like, the whole reason I waited is so I can play the PS5 version. Like, that's the whole reason. Like, I wasn't about to download the PS4 version in addition to it, just so I could upload a save. God. Anyway, Final Fantasy VII is still wonderful. I do want to talk about this game, though. And I know it's not necessarily the right format for it, but, like...
Oh, it doesn't matter.
So during the Xbox Showcase, which I thought was, like, more or less kind of like, it was fine. I thought the format was good, but like I just wasn't really all that interested in it. They dropped out of nowhere this Tango Gameworks melee action rhythm game produced by Shinji Mikami, and they just shadow dropped it on the day of, and it's fucking awesome. But I don't... Xbox is so confusing to me because like you have Halo in like the dumpster and like all these studios on fire. And then they just shadow drop probably their best game since like the last Gears. And it's awesome. It's like a really fun, like really stylish kind of cel shaded action rhythm melee combat game. It's got a lot of like Sunset Overdrive vibes to it. Not in like necessarily the open world traversal aspects, because it's actually very different in that sense. But like just this focus on music and rhythm and this very soundtrack driven experience. There's a boss really, really early on in the game, set to 9-inch nails, and it's so cool. It's so cool. Like this, I love this shit. This is like this Jet Set Radio, like Sunset Overdrive, like vibe.
Yeah, it definitely gave me Sunset vibes for sure.
It's yeah. That's what I thought it might have. I thought at first it was Bomb Rush Cyberpunk when I saw it, and I was like, what? I'm so confused. Like, why is this here? Because I've been waiting for that for a long time, and this is kind of like filling that niche. I think you should, be careful what you expect here, because it's not exactly necessarily what it comes across as. It's definitely not Sunset Overdrive in style and in combat necessarily, because you're not grinding along rails. You're not doing like tricks, or there's nothing like that. It's all rhythm based combat, and you get these like really fun moves, and it's I think it's like only $30 too. And it's obviously it's on Game Pass and it's on Steam and all that, but this is easily probably like the best Xbox first party title I've seen in a hot minute. I mean, you could argue Psychonauts 2 is that, but I still kind of feel like that was like an acquisition sort of situation. This one I feel like is a little bit more gestated in the Microsoft machine, and it's just really fucking good. If anybody has access to it, if you for some reason, I'm sure there's a lot of people who listen to this podcast who are kind of console agnostic like me, and they probably have access to at least one or more of these other systems. Highly recommend this game. Like it is fucking cool. It's got a killer soundtrack too.
Yeah, it's cool to see Tango do something different. I think some people look at these as wastes of time, but similar to Pentiment out of Obsidian, which is a little more on target, I think, for them. I just think that it's good to do different things and purge ideas from your system and allow people to, like, if I ran a AAA studio with some money and some prestige, what I would probably do is have one AAA game and one smaller game going at all times, and allow people to kind of get off of the main team and go work on something smaller, then come back and try to have some sort of system going like that with fluidity. Very difficult production wise, but that would be pretty neat. So yeah, that game looked cool. Definitely mega Sunset Overdrive vibes, no doubt. And I would think, for my opinion, I think this is something that Microsoft needs to do a lot more of. And I think they're trying to do more of. Pentiment, I think, was another example. But just having things that go on Game Pass specifically, where you don't mind subscribing for a month and seeing what it's all about, and you just kind of get in and check it out and stretch your legs, and then maybe you like what you see. That's going to require games like this. And it's cool that they realize that and are willing to use first-party assets to get it done. And I've been busting balls about how they don't, Microsoft doesn't deserve credit for Ghostwire Tokyo, which I don't think they do. Because I think it was just too far into development. But I think Hi-Fi Rush is probably, I don't know much about it. I don't know anything about it. I'd have to read more about it. But I would suspect that this comes from the Microsoft era of greenlight and launch. Considering it's a smaller game.
Yeah, it's a smaller game. It's the shadow drop nature of it was also just like, that energy needs to be in video games a little bit more. Not necessarily like everybody needs to be shadow dropping stuff, but just that excitement is really fucking cool. Seeing something that looks very, very different from anything else that you're offering right now, and seeing that it's like, what a weird idea. The story is really fun too. Like, I actually thought it was going to be kind of grating, because it did, like, the first line in the trailer is like, oh, so how did I get here? And I bet you're wondering how I got into this situation. And I was like, oh no, this is going to be like a Forspoken situation where the dialogue is like really cringe. And it's like, and it kind of brought something into my mind that I wasn't necessarily thinking of, which is like, art style and art direction is really, really integral to how people perceive writing as well. Because I genuinely feel like if Forspoken was like a more stylized game visually, I don't know if that dialogue would be as infuriating. Like, I think the idea that they're trying to pass that dialogue off as like real, and it's like it's a real person from real New York City in like a real fantasy. Like, I feel like that's kind of what feels off about it. Whereas this is like, this writing's kind of, cheeky, and it's kind of like, self-referential and irreverent in a somewhat similar way. But because it's like animated and very like personality, like nothing looks real, it feels a little bit more okay. And I feel like that might extend to High on Life as well. I think that's why, like, there's a different vibe that you expect. But I don't know. Hi-Fi Rush is fucking dope. I'm probably gonna play play a lot after this, and then obviously Dead Space, which I am so stoked for.
Yeah, it's all preloaded on my machine, ready to go.
Yep.
So I'm excited about that as well. And I was excited to see, for people that, I don't think this is a spoiler, that there's actually an alternate ending, which is interesting.
Ooh.
And I wonder what that means, because I never played Dead Space 3. In my opinion, Dead Space 2 is a pretty popular game, but I didn't like it that much. And I never beat it. And I wonder, is the secret ending, and I don't know, people already know the answer to this, I'm just hypothesizing, like, could this be some sort of spin-off where they're going to continue their own Dead Space continuity from the first game and kind of do something a little different? Because I think that would be really cool. As opposed to going and remaking Dead Space 2 and 3, I think there should just be a new Dead Space 2 and a new Dead Space 3, especially because so much of those games relied on a multiplayer suite, an increasingly large suite of online functionality endemic to that time. And I don't know, I think that would be pretty cool. And there's a new game plus, which is awesome. So you have to beat the game twice to get the platinum, for anyone out there curious. So I'm going to do just a full hard playthrough, and then I'm going to play through on Impossible on New Game Plus, and I think that will be doable. So I'm looking forward to that as well. Beginning tomorrow, the day this publishes is when we'll be playing. Yep. Cannot speak. All right, my friends, let's get into the news. There's only a few pieces of news to get through, so we can work our way through them. Number one, okay, so just what is the future of The Last of Us anyway? With the HBO show absolutely killing it in terms of viewership and critical reception, HBO owner Warner Brothers revealed that the second episode in the run had a 22% higher viewership than the first episode in its premiere window. Curiosity is high as to what is next, and The Last of Us gaming series is certainly benefiting from the HBO show. Reports out of the UK have The Last of Us Part 1's box sales increasing 238% week over week. Not so bad for a 4-month-old release. But in a conversation with website BuzzFeed, Neil Druckmann, the series creative lead and the co-lead of Naughty Dog, arguably PlayStation's most important studio, was pretty candid as to what may be happening next, and he even gave us a hint as to what factions may be simply in the use of his words. Here's what he told BuzzFeed. So I was surprised, by the way, in reading this, because I'm pretty sure he tells us more about the game here than we have ever learned about it so far, if you read between the lines. Quote, "We've been pretty open that the next Last of Us game is going to be this multiplayer experience, where you'll be able to enter the world of The Last of Us with your friend, singular," which is interesting, "and to get to experience the tension and brutality of that world, and a brand new story and cast of characters that live in another city that we haven't seen yet in the world of The Last of Us. This is going to be another chapter in the universe of The Last of Us." So I want to just stop here real quick. He says two things here that I think are notable. And unless I'm crazy, the use of the word friend indicates a co-op game, right? And not something where, that's awesome, but I was expecting, and that sounds actually way cooler than what I was expecting, which was something like I said, like The Division, which I love The Division, so I'm not shitting on it. Do you guys think my read on that is right?
I think you're reading into it too much, in that I don't think it would just, I mean, it's possible that there will be missions that would be singular, 2 people, but it would be weird to me if it was a co-op only experience.
I agree. But I feel like that's
maybe.
Yeah. So, because why wouldn't you just say friends? You go last with your friends and get to experience the tension and brutality of that world. What do you think, Chris?
Is this a written interview?
Or I was wondering the same thing. My assumption is that it is written based on. So this comes from a BuzzFeed article. People can go thing where they ask him 20 questions or something like that, and he answers them. And this is one of the questions they ask. And I think because, for instance, I use double dashes later on in a couple of times in the quote, and that's from BuzzFeed. So I don't know if that's a stylistic choice or that's something he wrote. But do you think I'm looking into this too much? Because I feel like that's so obvious, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't know. I think a co-op game would make a lot of sense for Last of Us, but at the same time, the way they're talking about it, or the way that this is being pitched in every other way outside of this conversation, seems to kind of imply the opposite, or not the opposite, but that the scope is a little bit more. So my thing is, it's like if this is a transcribed interview, I could see him maybe kind of talking through and just sort of like saying friend and not really thinking about it because he's just trying to get on with the point. But if it's written, I mean, that's a little bit more dubious. It's a bit more of a specific choice of where I could see it being. What if it's co-op focused in the sense that it's still multiplayer and there's like a lot of people running around the world, but it's like almost like duos type situation.
That'd be cool.
Like two squads of two or pairs of two kind of meander around. Like
that's what The Last of Us is for the player. So maybe it's trying to invoke that. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It's so tricky. I don't know what to make of this.
Yeah, maybe it's a situation where he's specifically talking about a story related experience in whatever this game is eventually called. And maybe that's co-op only, almost like how in Destiny you can, if you want to play the campaign missions, those are only 3 players. Your fire team can only be 3 players. So maybe to do the story missions, it's 2-player only, but there's still other stuff that you can do if this is a full multiplayer suite of stuff in The Last of Us that involves more players than that.
Indeed. The other thing I wanted to examine, and this doesn't need so much examination, is just the kind of the verification of a brand new story and cast of characters that live in another city we haven't seen yet in the world of The Last of Us. So he's verifying what was already obvious, which is that the game takes place in San Francisco. The 2 pieces of art that we've seen are clearly San Francisco. The second one is more subtly San Francisco, but it is absolutely the Embarcadero in San Francisco, no doubt about it. And so I think that's pretty cool. San Francisco, I think, though, is a little bit boring. You know, it would have, if this is a whole new story and a whole new cast of characters, God, why not set it overseas? You know, why not put it somewhere else entirely? No fireflies, no Fedra, none of that. It's just like something that would be fucking cool. You know, imagine you're like in the Middle East. What are they dealing with? Or you're in Africa, or you're in Australia. If you want to have some sort of like Anglosphere thing to just make it more accessible to more people, have it in England. That's my biggest disappointment, I think, is that, okay, new story, new characters, dope. But San Francisco?
I don't know. I feel like you could gamify San Francisco in a like, because I mean, most
Alcatraz.
Yeah,
Alcatraz. A level, dude, that'd be cool.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I think the nature overcoming man kind of theme of you know, general kind of apocalypses allows you to kind of take San Francisco and be a little bit more creative with it, and I don't know. We'll see. I don't think it's necessarily a bad idea. I think it'd be really cool to see The Last of Us overseas. If we were to get anything more from this, which I am not particularly excited about, but I think I don't know. I'm hung up on this idea of friend. That is a weird. That is a weird thing to say purposefully.
Yeah, I think so too. Go ahead.
The thing about the San Francisco is that the jokes, I mean, they just write themselves. I'm already prepared. People will be like, "Oh, look, there's less shit on the ground in the post-apocalypse than there is now." Like, you know what I mean? Oh, it doesn't look that different. Just, I'm ready. I'm ready for it. Twitter will be ablaze.
I want to go see if I can go to my old apartment in the Sunset.
You can find where the shit pants story.
Yeah, that was that was on Lake Merced. Yeah, we can go there as well. That probably will be in the game because that's a pretty notable place. Okay, so the other thing that I wanted to examine here, and again, no disrespect to San Francisco. I lived in San Francisco. I actually like San Francisco. I think it's falling apart. I think that's obvious, but I like the spirit of San Francisco a lot. The libertarian, kind of hippie, counterculture shit. It was cool. It was a neat place to live. So no disrespect to that. I just think that I don't even want to spoil the HBO show at all, but there's just indications that there could be interesting stories told somewhere else. And I would love to see that. I think that would be pretty interesting because they've made a really compelling world. And by the way, just to be certain, I went and looked at the BuzzFeed story just to make sure. He does say singular friend. I'm looking at it right now. So just in case they try to edit that later or anything like that. And then let's continue the quote. Quote, beyond that, I know there's a bunch of people wondering about The Last of Us Part 3 and whether that will be a thing or not. All I could say is at Naughty Dog, we're very, very privileged that our publisher is Sony, which means Sony funds our games, supports us, and we're owned by Sony. They have supported us every step of the way with our passions, meaning that just because something is successful, people think there's all sorts of pressure and we have to make a sequel. That's not the case. For us, Uncharted was insanely successful. Uncharted 4 was one of our best-selling games, and we're able to put our final brushstroke on that story and say we're done, we're moving on. Likewise, with The Last of Us, it's up to us whether we want to continue it or not. Our process is the same thing we did when we did The Last of Us Part 2, which is if we can come up with a compelling story that has this universal message and statement about love, just like the first and second game did, then we will tell that story. If we can't come up with something, we have a very strong ending with Part 2, and that will be the end. So some more news in there as well. He's talking about Part 3 like it doesn't even exist yet. And I think that's notable, whether it's an honest reflection of reality or not, because the rumors that we were discussing, and we don't know the veracity of them, is that The Last of Us Part 3 is a real thing. And I don't think anyone would be surprised that it's a real thing based on the success of the game, the critical darling kind of status of the series. The HBO series is now new movement, but I think that they might be afraid of doing too much too quickly. So I can imagine a situation where they're all in on factions as they all work on it, and maybe something else is percolating on the side, or there's another game entirely in development. I really don't know for sure. Dustin, let's go back to you. What do you think about anything else said here as far as their ability to do what they want? They've said that this isn't necessarily news. They've said this for a long time. In fact, I would imagine that they said the exact same thing about The Last of Us Part 2, which is if it makes sense, we'll do it. If it doesn't, we won't. Sony lets us do what we want, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
I think the thing that is becoming more apparent to me as time goes on is that when we first heard about factions, it felt like, oh, we need more time to work on the multiplayer mode for Part 2. And so we're going to release it later. It's going to be its own standalone thing, which is cool. But now it's made me more excited. And I guess this has been apparent for a while. Maybe just my stupid brain didn't connect the dots, is that this really is the full force next Naughty Dog title, this multiplayer Last of Us game. And in some ways, we maybe should be thinking about it as the third Last of Us game from the amount of time and care they're putting into it. And from that perspective, it makes it a lot more exciting to me. And in an era too, where we have so many unnecessary like multiplayer cash grabs, to have Naughty Dog, who has made some really awesome multiplayer modes and is clearly has an attention to detail and getting things right, to have them go full force into a multiplayer game is really exciting. And the more that time goes on, the more interested and curious I am, and excited. I mean, quite frankly, just excited to see what this game is, just because, like I said, when it first was announced, it sounded like the multiplayer mode, like the sequel to that, like we'll be doing deathmatch with in the Last of Us world, which was really not that exciting to me, even though I know that the original Factions was really good for a lot of people. So having that mindset of it being like a totally new experience, a basic sequel, another standalone game in the Last of Us world, makes it a lot more exciting.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And part of me is reflexively against them working on multiplayer content exclusively, just because I feel like it's a waste. But if they can, they've already kind of helped to reshape narrative games. So they could do the same with multiplayer games. Not that multiplayer games need help. Multiplayer games are the ones that are dragging this industry forward with all the money they make. Chris, do you have any further thoughts on this Last of Us situation?
No, I mean, I think you guys wrapped it up pretty well, but I will say that I would not be surprised to find out that whatever this Last of Us multiplayer project is, Bungie's definitely got a hand in this in some way, shape, or form. Like,
That'd be
because
very interesting.
I don't imagine, I don't think it's like necessarily in a development capacity. That'd be kind of wild. But I do think if you are, if you're Sony and you purchased like one of the most renowned multiplayer studios ever, when most, if not every single one of your major flagship titles is largely devoid of that expertise, why wouldn't you leverage that in some way? And that to me is kind of exciting, because Naughty Dog, I'm sure, is like a very competent studio. They know what they're doing, especially with gameplay and narrative. And they're not slouches at multiplayer either, but like it stands to reason to me that you don't pay for Bungie, work on a Last of Us title, and then not just not tap into that knowledge at all.
Totally. Yeah, leverage the tools, leverage the knowledge. So that's why they're here.
That part's exciting to me. But
That's good. That's a good insight. I didn't even really think about that. You're almost certainly right, because this is going to be huge.
Yeah.
I mean, whether or not it's going to be good or successful is another thing, but this is going to be a big one for Sony. And I'm wondering so much about it. Is it going to cost money? Like, will it be free? Will it be like an interstitial price, like $30 or $40? Will it? I don't know why, because it's not really fair to it. I guess I just always framed my understanding of it in my mind's eye as The Division. And seeing, like, exploring spaces like that, kind of making the spaces seem way bigger than they are by going inside of buildings and doing all of that. And then hopefully being able to go to different locations, which would be cool, albeit unlikely. I don't know. I wonder, like, even what the whole structure is. Who are the factions, as it were? I don't mean that in terms of the name of the game, but like, who are going to be the factions and who are going to be the characters. It's exciting and it's interesting. I agree. I'm really interested to see how it plays with me, because I love The Last of Us, as everyone knows, but I'm not really a multiplayer guy. And maybe that's why my mind gravitates towards The Division, because that is acceptable to me.
Yeah.
So I was like, it's going to be it's factions is The Last of Us Division, sure. But really, we have no clue. And we have no clue when it comes out. We have no clue what its platforms are going to be. Could it be on PC? Is it going to be held back on PS4 as well?
Don't say that.
I hope not. I doubt it.
That'd be such a shame.
Doubtful, but we'll see. Yeah, it would be a shame. All right, so much more to say about The Last of Us. By the way, I'm glad everyone's enjoying our weekly, like I said, interstitial Sacred Symbols Plus episodes about each episode of the HBO show. That's been a lot of fun. People have wanted Chris on that. Chris is kind of busy with his boxing stuff or whatever, but I think we'll get him on one or two when he's available. We have 9 episodes.
I'll definitely try to be on one, but it's
yeah, he's tight, and we need him for Constellation. We need him for other things. So we appreciate your support.
You can either have me on every episode of the Spoiler Cast, and then maybe I'll die.
Oh.
So I'd rather just like miss a couple episodes and like not die.
That'd be a problem.
that'd be like, that's my ideal.
Yeah, that would be a problem. So we can't have that. Number 2, after a somewhat brief lifetime full of tumult, the Avengers game as a service by developer Crystal Dynamics is officially ending. According to a blog post on the game's official website, Marvel's Avengers 2.5-year run will end on September 30th later this year, when the game is taken offline. The final update to the game, 2.8, will arrive on March 31st, and it will represent the last new content or update for the product. Likewise, the in-game marketplace used primarily for cosmetics will also be shut down that same day, March 31st, and players will no longer be able to purchase or use credits. Remaining in-game credits, quote, will be converted into in-game resources to aid ongoing adventures, end quote. Additionally, quote, as a show of our appreciation for our community, starting March 31st, 2023, we will make all of the game's marketplace, challenge card, and shipment cosmetic content available to all players for free, end quote. Launched in September of 2020 on PlayStation 4 and ported natively to PS5 in 2021, Avengers had a soft critical reception from the start, and it was never able to maintain a truly meaningful player base beyond its launch window. Long in development in Crystal Dynamics, the studio known for the Tomb Raider reboots, Avengers was a huge financial miss for publisher Square Enix, which later sold the studio and all of its IP, along with 2 of its sister teams, to Embracer. As this is a Square Enix game now run by an external studio, the writing was always on the wall, and this was likely in the cards at the time of the studio's sale. As for Crystal Dynamics, founded way back in 1992, they are currently working on a new Tomb Raider game to be published by Amazon, one we leaked on this very show, Tolby. And they're also working on Xbox's struggling Perfect Dark reboot, once led by its internal team, The Initiative. I never played this game. I never cared about this game, but what I do remember about this game is how long it was in development. I knew people that worked on this game, and I remember people talking about it when I was at IGN. I mean, that's how long this game was gestating in some way, shape, or form. And it didn't look very good, and I just think this was a misallocation of resources, not unlike what EA allowed BioWare to do with Anthem, to be perfectly honest. I think the only thing that carried this game forward was its license. Otherwise, I don't think, and if this was just a game.
Oh yeah, no.
If this was Tomb Raider, I don't think anyone would have cared, even if it was.
Yeah, it's it's definitely been carried by the fact that it's an Avengers property, and Marvel is so big that anything even remotely related to it is going to be wickedly, at the very least, very successful in some way, shape, or form. Because I mean, it did, a lot of people did play it. Like it had, it wasn't an abject failure in the same way that Anthem was, but it was just so much more expensive to make. How much money did they lose? Like 60 million?
I think it was like 70 million or something. Yeah.
Yeah, $70 million on it. It's the funny thing about this is, if you were ever curious about this, now is probably the best time to jump into this.
Totally.
like why would, and wouldn't it be surprising if everybody jumped into it now that everything was free? It's like, wow, this is actually a good game now that it's not awkwardly cordoned off. Would that be a lesson? I don't know.
Maybe so. My assumption is that this had to have just been known. Like this was obvious. You're not going to buy a studio and then allow it to work on your old publisher's game. I mean, I'm sure there would be a financial gain to do that, but that just seems like a waste of resources in my opinion. So
yeah.
Dustin, this always seemed to be happening. I'm actually surprised this game lasted as long as it did. I mean, by the time it goes offline, it will have been about 3.5 years, I think, right? Something like that. So that's not terrible. I mean, it's not ideal, but it's something. And certainly a lesson learned. You gotta aim your resources better than this.
Well, that's what jumped out to me when you were reading this is that 2.5 years or whatever, however long it is, feels like longer than you would expect. But also if you read about this, if you didn't know anything about this game and heard Avengers multiplayer game, then it's way too short. Like it's somewhere that it should have been more successful. But the fact that the game, the way it was, lasted as long as it did is, I guess, somewhat impressive. But this game never appealed to me. Obviously, I know people are tired about hearing about my distaste for current Marvel, but even when it came out, I probably would have been more likely to be interested in it. And even then, I don't know. I never had any kind of FOMO about this game. I had friends asking me to jump in and play. And I just, at the time, I thought, man, I'm not, this doesn't seem very good. But I know that some people did have fun with it. It's just one of those situations where they were trying to make something that shouldn't be. Taking a game that's about a lineup of heroes and then adding like Destiny style RPG live service mechanics into it. It never made any sense from the get-go.
Dude, when I saw that video clip of somebody equipping different lungs on the Hulk, I was like, you gotta be fucking.
That's awesome. Is that a thing? I didn't even know that. That's
awesome. It's like because every character has like things that like Iron Man has, like, oh, here's like ionic gloves or whatever, and they do like, I don't know, like I'm kind of half-assing my explanation of this because I've never played it either. I just know what I know through like brief video clips, and like I think I watched some reviews. I think I watched a skill up review and kind of like took a lot of it off of that, but. You can equip different like gloves and different like stats, but the Hulk is just the Hulk. Like he's got no gadgets. So what they do is like they give him like, and I think I remember it being like an X-ray too, like an X-ray, like, it's like new lungs for I don't know this or like a stronger heart. And I'm like, is the lore of this that like the Hulk is getting transplants? Is this like what is going on? Like this is such a baffling like. Never in my life have I seen a more clear example of mechanics stapled onto a game that it had no business being a part of.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
My question is, we talked last week about the Suicide Squad image that leaked about them having their battle pass and stuff like that. I just wonder if the thing with Suicide Squad, I wonder if we're having an Anthem-like situation where they were 2 heads down and now they're going to repeat the exact same mistake as this Avengers game. Or if some of these leaks or not leaks, some of these delays are because they started to see the writing on the wall with Avengers and they thought we have to figure out a way to make this work after seeing this total failure. I guess not a total failure. As I said, it lasted longer than you would expect. But seeing this failure, how do we make it work for our game?
I have to imagine that there's some kind of internal response. I by the way, I know I was pretty hard on the UI on Suicide Squad. I still think the gameplay looks dope. All right. It looks like it's. Yeah. I don't think Suicide Squad is going to be nearly even remotely as bad as the Avengers game. Right. I think it's going to mop the floor with it, quite frankly. But I am worried about like I don't know, just these like general kind of UX, this economy system that's kind of like thrown into games that really don't need it. Like I'm nervous seeing 2 different levels next to each character. It just, that stuff worries me, because that does affect the quality of, you know, the experience of the game that you're playing. It just does. I think one of the most refreshing things about like this hi-fi rush thing is that it's got none of that. It's just like a straight single player game based around mechanics. And I'm like, oh, this is so nice. There's not a battle pass. There's no like level. Like it's all just a game, and it's refreshing now. And hopefully anybody making a game, especially a single player game, even if it's got,
make
if
it
you're
like a
making
game.
yeah, make it a game. We like video games, shockingly enough. They're pretty cool, I heard.
It's interesting to look at this through the context of Square Enix as well, just with this game costing so much money to make and then losing money, but also Platinum and Babylon's Fall just failing to a complete degree, that I wonder what lessons they've learned. It almost sounds like I'm writing an old IGN article. What can Square Enix learn from Babylon Fall's failure? But really, what can they learn from that? And what can they learn from Marvel? And what can they learn from Final Fantasy XIV and its success? You have something to say, Dustin?
I didn't tell you guys that I played a little bit of Babylon's Fall over Christmas break before the server shut down.
Did you really? Oh, that's interesting.
Dude, here's the thing is that I didn't even get to the point. Like I played the intro part where it started to get into the live service stuff where you could see other people in like a hub area. The combat of this game is was so fucking bad. It was unbelievable. When I was playing it, I thought, how did this team, the team that made Bayonetta, make this? The team that made Nier Automata, how is it even possible? It was shocking how bad it was. That I thought that my curiosity, even knowing it was bad, would be able to go a little further than it did. But even then, it was shocking how bad it was. Just absolutely terrible.
Yeah, the people spoke on that one. That one had no prayer from the start. That was more of a Battleborn situation where I'm like, nah, not at all. Not a chance. And you just tell from the get-go. And Platinum, we'll see what happens to them. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else I want to say about this? No. I think it's time to move on. The final story, number 3. Developer BioWare, long beloved for its RPGs like Mass Effect, has lost a major player, Mac Walters. As relayed by website Eurogamer, Walters noted on his LinkedIn that he left earlier this month and that he's taking a break from the industry for the time being for quote-unquote personal goal pursuit. Walters joined a more nascent BioWare back in 2003 when he began writing for their in-development Xbox-exclusive Jade Empire. He went on to be a senior writer for Mass Effect, which launched in 2007, and was the lead writer of both of its sequels, which launched in 2009 and 2012. From there, however, his career entered a more tumultuous phase. Though he isn't credited as such on Moby Games, which is widely accepted as the focal database of games work, his LinkedIn notes that he worked on Anthem for more than a year early in its development as narrative director. And then, of course, he went on to be the creative director for 2017's disastrous Mass Effect Andromeda. He segued to project director for the well-received Mass Effect Legendary Edition and acted as production director for the Dragon Age franchise, which is perhaps where things get a little nerve-wracking. To remind everyone, it is exceptionally weird to leave a studio when a big game is in mid-development, especially when you are in production or development. It's just not something that happens without a reason, whether personal or professional. The next Dragon Age game, Dreadwolf, was first revealed way back in 2018 as Dragon Age 4 and would be the first new Dragon Age game since Inquisition launched on PS3 and PS4 in 2014. However, Dreadwolf's development has been famously tortured, and it's unclear when we will see the game or if this version now being worked on is even the original incarnation, which is unlikely. I saw this, and this was going underreported. I don't know if it's because people don't really connect Mac Walters with anything, but along with Drew Karpyshyn, Mac Walters was a major player in the writing of Mass Effect's world, lore, characters, and really important. And if you like Jade Empire, he like I said, he worked on that too. But he also worked on some duds, although I don't think Anthem and Mass Effect Andromeda are duds for their writing. So I'm not so sure it's his fault. But Dustin, I'll go to you first. What do you think about him leaving? He's in production director, leaving during the production of the game. And I don't know why you would do that. That just doesn't, that just doesn't happen unless there's a reason. You don't just leave. It's important for you to ship your game. And I don't know. I don't know what's going on over there at BioWare. It's a little concerning though.
Yeah, well, the thing that I was going to say, it just seems like something is wrong at BioWare and has been for it feels like half the time they've been around. Like I remember during the Mass Effect era, it felt like BioWare had a level of prestige in the industry where it's like, oh, it's a BioWare game. Of course it's going to be good. It almost felt like Valve at the time, like they were in the same conversation. Like, yeah, anything BioWare makes, I'm there for. And then something changed. I mean, they got bought by EA, which a lot of people, that's the focal point that they want to point to as that was the beginning of the end. And certainly I think a case could be made for that. But something has gone very, very wrong at this studio where they can't seem to really get anything out of, I mean, I would say even exceptional quality, but even just quality overall. Seems like the last game they had that was really well received outside of the Legendary Edition was Dragon Age Inquisition, which, at least for us on this show, wasn't very impressive. But to be fair, a lot of people really did enjoy that game. It won Game of the Year. But since then, it's been nothing but bad after bad game after terrible game, failed launch. You know, talk about Anthem and Mass Effect Andromeda. It's not been good. And I don't really know what they're supposed to do, because it seems like they've tried to turn things around where there was all the stuff about Anthem and how they were going to re-change the direction of that game. And there was a lot of excitement behind that. Anthem next. And then that got shut down. And now this Dragon Age game, which, when was that announced?
2018.
2018. Like, what the fuck's going on? They have another Mass Effect game in development.
Well, that's why
also?
I say that it's not. I don't think it's even the original version of the game now. I think now it's just like totally reworked. I think that might even be confirmed from reporting. But yeah, it's a scene over there.
It's sad that your best recent thing you've done is re-releasing your old shit. Like, that's just kind of depressing.
Yeah.
And it sucks because, dude, Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3 are some of the absolute best.
Yeah, they're great.
They're great. Best.
No doubt.
And I know a lot of people like Jade Empire too. I've never played that, but it's sad. It's really sad.
Yeah. BioWare's done a lot of interesting, KOTOR, and, you know, they have an important place. I didn't play Neverwinter and stuff like that, but I know that they have a place with PC gamers going back even further. I don't have any experience with that stuff, but yeah, interesting turn of events. Chris, do you have anything you want to add here as Mac Walters bids farewell? By the way, quietly from BioWare, it doesn't seem like he really made a to-do about it. Someone kind of discovered it. Although when you make changes on LinkedIn, people are they're gonna notice. Are you there?
I'm just, I don't know. The thing with BioWare is that, like, it's really difficult for me to like, I don't even know what BioWare is anymore. And I think, like, I mean, Dustin said it pretty well. Like, there's just the idea that, like, the biggest and most well-respected thing you've done recently is just, like, update your old stuff. I mean, you could make the case that, like, you know, what's so impressive about Dead Space remake, I guess, you know, like, if so much of that was already amazing. But, like, I think it's a different thing here where, like, those games are, like, some of the best that I've ever played, sincerely. And it's just hard for me to care about BioWare, and that makes me so sad now. Because, like, when I read this, or when I heard about this news, I was like, oh, all right, whatever. Like, it didn't even remotely register to me as anything that was important, quite frankly. Because I'm just like, what even... Am I excited about the next Mass Effect? Am I excited about the next Dragon Age? No. I never really cared about Dragon Age, to be fair, but, like, Mass Effect is like, no, leave it alone. We gotta get better at, like, letting things die.
Definitely.
I think. Like, I think just things are just persisting way too long. And I know that there's, like, stability in that, where it's like, okay, we know that, you know, and I'm not saying, like, Nintendo has to, you know, take Mario out back and kill him or anything, but
well, imagine if that happened.
Can you imagine they just don't make Mario games?
New Donk City's fucked up, man. Crazy things happen in New Donk.
I hate that name so much.
Me too.
But I don't know. It's this didn't even register to me when this happened. I was like, all right, well,
yeah. I mean,
reason.
It doesn't really mean very much because, like you said, BioWare doesn't even have a real identity anymore, and it is strange. And I still feel like EA kind of just leaves them alive because I don't think they can manage the bad publicity that would come from shutting them down. because it would just be another example of them fucking a studio up, or at least making it unrecognizable and EAizing it. And I'm not an EA hater per se. I really am not. I like some of what they do, but they really mismanaged their talent at a time when talent should have been incubated and supported, and they would be in a much different situation right now if they just did something like that instead of beating shit into the ground and chasing trends and doing all the rest. And the thing about Andromeda specifically was Andromeda came out around the time that I left Kind of Funny, which was a tumultuous time in my own life. And I've always wanted to get back to it. And I think I tried once and I was like, eh. But I do want to like know it for some reason. Like, what is this game? And maybe I won't be able to see it through, but I would like to get back there at some point and just be able to judge it a little more first person, as it were. Anyway, Mac Walters out of the industry for now. I'm sure he'll be back when he wants to be. My friends, let's end this episode of Sacred Symbols like we do each and every week with 6 questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas from the audience on Patreon. Remember to support us on Patreon. Patreon.com/laststandmedia, early ad-free access, Sacred Symbols Plus, access to the Discord, submit the questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas, get your name in the credits, and so on and so forth. Jonathan Sherlin wrote in and said, hey guys, was wondering what your thoughts were on what Bruce Straley said about not getting a credit in the Last of Us HBO show. In the LA Times article about the Last of Us franchise, Straley said, quote, it's an argument for unionization that someone who is part of the co-creation of that world and those characters isn't getting a credit or a nickel for the work they put into it. Maybe we need unions in the video game industry to be able to protect creators, end quote. What do you think of this? With all the work that Straley put into creating The Last of Us' world, does he deserve some sort of story or characters co-written by credit and or some money? And if so, do you think that the video game industry should have unions to assure creators get such credit and receive such credit? This is a pretty popular point of contention because this is coming from a different place than most unionization drive comes from. Bruce Straley is a well-off creative director level video game person, and you don't see people at that level caring very much. But I think I'm sympathetic to Bruce. I don't really remember very much about our interactions with each other. I don't think he really liked me very much. I obviously became very friendly over the years with Neil, but my interactions with Bruce, I don't know nearly as much about him, and I don't know what his feel is on the situation, but I look at him as being a little bit pardon the pun, left behind. I don't know what happened between him and Neil. I never asked, and I don't think it's anyone's business, but I do think that there is something that happened there. Not between him and Neil per se, but between him and Naughty Dog. And I think that's obvious. And Uncharted 4, I think, was a very unpleasant experience for everyone involved, because I think you have to remember that Neil and Bruce weren't supposed to make Uncharted 4. That wasn't in the cards. When Amy was removed from Naughty Dog, which happened, I don't know, a couple of years in the Uncharted 4's original development cycle, they were the ones that were put on the game to finish it, but it wasn't finishing it. It was actually like doing it over. The pieces of that wasn't a fart, by the way. That was my foot, in case you heard it. Although I would have claimed if it was a fart if you heard it. But even like I know this because I saw the run of Uncharted 4 on Amy Hennig's wall when I was writing the history of Naughty Dog. But the sections of Uncharted 4 as they are now are just places in the games that were already made and being worked on, and they had to basically write and work a new story to get all of these places in, so they didn't have to do the work over. So, for instance, Scotland existed in the original game. It was in a different part of the timeline, and you did different shit there, but that world existed. And so they had to come in and rework that. And I don't think they don't think that was a great experience.
The first trailer for Uncharted 4, you can see a glimpse of that. There's like a narration in the background that doesn't sound like the story of the game that eventually came out. The trailer, I think it was, I think they released that the night of the PS4 launch. It's like right when the console.
That's right.
Came
it was
out.
It was just called Uncharted.
Right.
And it was Amy Hennig sitting on a couch, like in a studio with someone, maybe Jeff Keighley, someone like that. Yeah, I remember that too. And it was just the Uncharted logo and along with some video. And yeah, you're right. And it's a lot of this is just speculation and kind of just observation. But I just think that was a tough situation to find themselves in. And so Bruce leaves the studio. I think he left on his own volition. And I think it's probably difficult to have been in that situation and then kind of be, for lack of a better term, forgotten about. And should there be rules codifying this stuff? I think so. I don't know what the rules look like, and it would require some sort of, if not, it doesn't even require unions. It requires some sort of like convention, like a Geneva Convention type thing between all of the companies or many of the companies. Say like, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to treat people. This is how we're going to give people credit, and all of the rest. And so I do feel for him, because Bruce did have a major part in The Last of Us. Neil does, and I love Neil, but he does get all of the credit. And I don't know that that's really fair. I don't know if you guys remember in the period before the game came out, they were kind of being talked about more together. And when I actually think that was true for The Last of Us, but when Uncharted 4 was shown off at PSX for the first time in gameplay, it was Bruce that played it on stage. And so like that vibe of being like this and this person and this person, this person and this person, I think was being cultivated and then kind of split. And I totally understand why there's a loss there. I mean, I can kind of relate to it in some small way, just in, I've been erased from Podcast Beyond's history. I've been erased from IGN's history. Like, I'm never talked about in those circles, anymore. I just interviewed Cara Lynn from Limited Run Games, who was surprised to learn that I co-founded Kind of Funny. She's like, oh, I didn't even know that. It's like, yeah, I know, because everything I've done is just forgotten about. And that does hurt, but that's kind of the way it goes. And so I've gone on. Chris, how do you feel about Bruce's situation here and this idea that he deserves credit and money, even residuals, for his work in The Last of Us, and how that 2013 in the games industry was just a different place? But I'm sure it hurts to see this and have no involvement in it,
Yeah, I can imagine it sucking a great deal to be like a key component of why something is successful, and then just not, and just have no public association with it, just because people just choose not to credit you. That's fucked up. And if again, I'm gonna say this, I don't know the exact nature of what their relationship is. I'm not privy to any of this information, but I mean, I would definitely feel some type of way if I had a huge hand in creating The Last of Us, and then it got this HBO show that's getting critical acclaim, and then my name was not even mentioned. I'd feel some type of way about that. It's not even about like being hungry for all the credit. It's just like, yo, I contributed to this. I would like at least some acknowledgement, just at the very least. So I sympathize.
Yeah, and I think Bruce was the lead on Left Behind and a lot of the story decisions and things that are still being mined today. And it's hard for me to talk about in some meaningful way because of my relationship with Neil. But it's just, and this, we don't talk about this kind of stuff at all, but just in that, I do feel this way, Dustin, about Bruce too. I should reach out to him, but again, I don't know how he feels about me or if he wants to talk about it or whatever. I'm sure he doesn't, but there seems to be hard feelings and kind of almost an estrangement there that I can relate to. And it is a bummer. Do you think that something should be done about this? If not now, then in the future?
I'm not totally sure about this area, but I wonder, the write-in writes in about, should he deserve credit or some money? I think that the problem is that, isn't there some stuff that's like, if you're credited, then it would give you more grounds to ask for money or something like that. Like, I don't know. For me, as far as the money aspect, it's like he was paid when he worked for Sony and made The Last of Us for them.
Sure. And it's worth noting that Neil doesn't own The Last of Us any more than Bruce does. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think it totally makes sense to me that you would, in the credits, it would say like, based on the video game, The Last of Us, created by Neil Druckmann and Bruce Straley, right? Like, that would make sense to me. But I think that the problem is, like you were saying, Colin, is that we don't have any rules about what should be credited and what isn't. And like I said, I wonder if they wouldn't want to credit him from the perspective of, I know that there's some stuff with as far as like actors and like if someone's credited, if they're not, are they part of this guild they have to be subscribed a member of and stuff like that. So I don't know if anything like that would be attached to it, but I guess it makes sense to me why he isn't, based on where he currently stands with PlayStation and Naughty Dog, but it doesn't make it not suck.
Yeah, there's like you know what it reminds me of a little bit is we talked about this at the time, but and we've discussed this in the past too, and more times than just the first time was CD Projekt signed a sweetheart deal with Andrei Sapkowski over The Witcher to the point where it's a complete insult. And Polish law, like I think he took some flat sum of money as opposed to points, which was a huge mistake. And so I think he literally made like $500,000 or something like that, which is comical. And Polish law actually has a remedy for this, like an almost an unfairness remedy where things can be revisited. Like, let's say, I don't know if this is a great example, but like you sell a gold coin for, like the value above its weight in gold, and because of its provenance, blah, blah, blah. And then you end up finding out that it's from some crazy treasure, lost treasure or whatever, and its value goes up. Like, you might be entitled to some more remedy than what you were given because it was unfair and like you did it unknowingly, just like he kind of unknowingly made the wrong decision. I'm not sure that I like that kind of situation. Like, I think you should be bound to your word. And he should have been maybe more careful, but instead of litigating it, CD Projekt went to him and was like, let's redo the deal because it's the right thing to do. And there's nothing stopping, because there are none of these guilds or anything like that exist yet in gaming. So there's nothing stopping, if Sony cared and wanted to do right by him, they could reach out to him. Like, we know based on what he was saying in the LA Times, he's not due any residuals. He wouldn't be due any residuals. I'm sure, I don't want to speak out of turn, but Bruce Straley directed 5 on Naughty Dog games. My suspicion is that he's a millionaire. I could be totally wrong about that. I assume the bonuses for these games were substantial at the directorial level for both their critical and commercial reception. But that doesn't mean anything when someone else is maybe getting much more credit at your sake, as it were. And I get that. I think it sucks. But what do you do about it? Well, maybe right now Bruce should use his voice and his prestige as the director of Naughty Dog games at once upon a time to say, like, well, let's fix this. I'm not going to be able to get my name in this. I didn't get any residuals for helping create The Last of Us and shepherding that, and Ellie and Joel and all these things that I really helped more. Especially because he's an artist. He's a writer too, but he's and it's fair to say that Neil is also an artist. He's more of a designer. But I would imagine that a lot of the look and feel of The Last of Us really comes from his head. And so maybe it'll be remedied. And you know what they could do is, and I'm going on, I'm sorry, but Uncharted 4, as I recall, at the end of it had a thing where it was like, thank you, Amy Hennig. I think that's what it said or something. Literally something like, couldn't do without you, Amy Hennig. I mean, it was much more eloquent than that. And so does he deserve just a little bit of that in the credits? I don't know. Does it matter? Do people in the know? But more people need to know. I don't know, man. I mean, you know what? I would love to see Bruce and Neil reunited and working on something together. I mean, that would be sick. What about Neil's kind of doing the HBO thing? He's co-lead of the entire studio now. Sure, very busy. It's like Bruce comes in and directs part 3. On the ground game director. Be kind of cool, but I don't know. I don't know what happened there. All right. Thank you for writing in. Zach Wishnuff wrote in and said, C-sticks and the big D-pad. In a hypothetical world where Sony acquires or merges with Nintendo, which SIE studios do you think would be the perfect fit for Nintendo's IP? A Bungie-produced Metroid Prime, a new Zelda game made by Sony Santa Monica, Mario developed by Team Asobi? What say you? I like hypotheticals like this. This is never going to happen. Obviously, we're not saying this. But, Chris, what comes to mind for you when you think of Nintendo and Sony? I guess that would be the easiest way to answer this question.
Yeah, I feel like, man, it's tricky because they're almost so antithetical to one another in a lot of ways, because it's like, Sony is so story driven and so narrative focused that I can't even imagine what Naughty Dog, what Nintendo game would even benefit from that. I feel like almost the strengths of Sony would be detrimental to Nintendo in some way. I do think like with Bungie in the fold, I do think like, I mean, obviously they're very renowned for FPSs. I have no doubt if for whatever reason, hypothetically, Bungie managed to make a Metroid game, it would undoubtedly be the best one because I don't know if this is controversial or not, but Metroid Prime is cool, but it's, it's not in a top 10 list of best first person shooters. It's a far cry from that. And so I think they could do a really cool job with that. But like pre-Bungie, like as far as I'm talking about, like proper Sony first party, like non-external vertical, I don't even know. Like what would you even put Santa Monica Studio on? Like what would you put Naughty Dog on? I have no idea. A really gritty, dark Mario where Yoshi dies in Mario's arms.
Hell yeah, that'd be sick. I would love that.
I can't even imagine.
Toad dies in Mario's arms. That would be even funnier.
Nah, no one would care about Toad. Toad is like the most expendable character in the Mario universe. If Toad dies in that movie or whatever, I don't think a single person is gonna react even slightly.
I love Toad because he was my character in Super Mario 2. He was great. He picked things up the quickest, and I always thought that made him the most useful. Dustin, what comes to mind for you? Nintendo plus Sony.
Yeah, this was tough when I was thinking about this before we started recording because people aren't going to like this, but the reason why I am so drawn to Nintendo is that I do think that they do, not always, but often that their games are a cut above the rest. They make games in a unique way. It's really appealing to me. People will call it the Nintendo bump. I don't care. So it was hard for me to pair these up because I felt like Sony's really good at what they're doing and Nintendo's really good at what they're doing, but did have two answers. First of all, a Blue Point remake of Ocarina of Time. Just
ground up.
I don't know. I think some people would be off-put if there was a more realistic looking Zelda game, but I think that they would be able to pull it off. And obviously just one of the all-time great games of all time. The 3DS remake was pretty good, but I want a full actual remake of that game someday. Then here's the thing. He says in the write-in, Zach says a Bungie produced Metroid Prime. What about a Naughty Dog Metroid game, a third-person Metroid game where you can really dive into Samus as a character?
Like Other M? Wasn't that third person?
Other M, but good.
If we're gonna break out of that zone, I feel like Metroid's the easiest one to kind of take to other. I actually think right. Oh my god, why the hell am I think Housemarque would make a fucking dope Metroid game.
Oh yeah,
probably it would be like a third person game, obviously, but strictly first person thinking. Like, I mean, Bungie's really the only person. Maybe Insomniac could probably do most of it. Probably you could probably put Insomniac on most Nintendo games and they'd probably knock it out of the park. I think sincerely, like I think they're the only studio in Sony's first party that is that flexible and that like omni-talented in the sense that they could really probably get away with that. If they can do Ratchet, Spider-Man, Resistance, and all this other shit, I have no reason to doubt that they'd be able to handle like, yeah, why not? Make a Mario Kart. Naughty Dog, make Mario Kart.
That'd be awesome. Good use of resources.
You can do it. I know you can. I've seen it. You can do it. You've still got that fight in you.
You guys just said you can do whatever you want. So let's go. Yeah. Do you want it? But they don't want it bad enough. But Chris, you make a really interesting point that they're so diametrically opposed to each other at this point. And what I think is so funny about that is that they were at one time doing it together.
Yeah.
And through that whole experience, there are just these strange inflection points. And I think of like just I think 1991 or whenever it was at CES when they got scorned and left at the altar with this what they were going to do with the Super Nintendo add-on and all of that, and they just Sony went on a mission. It was never going to happen like this if that didn't go off. In fact, what probably would have ended up happening, very similar to the Genesis's Mega Drives add-ons, is that it probably would have been just a forgotten add-on. and we would have never gotten a PlayStation at all, and there would have maybe been something else that happened. So I love those inflection points in gaming history. And so even though they're so different from each other, it's funny that their heritage is together. And it almost once upon a time almost got the PlayStation as a Super Nintendo add-on. All right. Jordan Faldudo wrote in and said, Colin, you often talk about wanting to purchase the Podcast Beyond rights from IGN. My question is, what would you do with it if Pear actually let that happen? Well, I've asked Pear several times over the years, including most recently when Jonathan Dornbush left IGN to go to Naughty Dog. Nothing weird about that, by the way. And I was declined, and that's totally fine. I don't, you don't have to sell your stuff. And we the first time we tried was when we found it kind of funny. I tried again a few years ago, and then I talk to Pear like every once in a while. We just exchange emails. We're on good terms. I love Pear. I think PlayStation is getting old enough now where it's time to look at it through a nostalgic and retro lens. And I would make Podcast Beyond into our retro PlayStation product that celebrates old things, PlayStation, because I think we're at a point now where there needs to be more attention paid to that. I don't have the resources to really think about it. It's just what I would want to do with the brand, is to do something with it like that. My honest take, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, and I know it's going to come off this way, and I'm sorry. It's just that brands persist, but they're not the same anymore. And we see this in music, right? Sublime with Rome. It's not Sublime. The guy's dead, so the Sublime can't exist anymore, right? It's Stone Temple Pilots with Chester Bennington, who unfortunately also passed away, and so on and so forth. Or Alice in Chains without Lane Staley, where I'm like, it's not the same.
Did you say 21 Pilots without Chester Bennington?
Stone Temple Pilots, when he was he was the second singer. I meant Scott Weiland, yeah. And then and when Chester Bennington did it. Sorry, you're right.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Wanted to correct you.
No, I appreciate it. And so I think about it in terms of hollowness. Like when you get there's been multiple hosts of the Tonight Show. Jack Parr was the host of the Tonight Show. It's but they changed the name, and it changes the tenor, and it changes the cadence of it. I just feel like Podcast Beyond there are like 7 or 8 people that I think most of the audience of the time when that was actually a major podcast would think are associated with it, and none of them have been associated with the show in years. And I just think that it doesn't literally belong to us, but I think it figuratively belongs to us, and I want to continue to try to acquire it. Although I think it becomes less valuable the more that it's used in this particular timeline. If it didn't or doesn't end up with me, which I doubt it will, I think it should end up with Greg or Ryan Clements or Jeremy Dunham, like someone that really owns its popularity and like why it was a brand at all. Because it's like no disrespect to it, because this show doesn't do anything like the traffic that Podcast Beyond used to do. Straight up, not even close. But we do more traffic than Podcast Beyond does now. And that's a stark fall in like, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure there were months where we had 1 million downloads, which is insane. Audio downloads during the audio only era, which is a lot, during 2009, 2010, 2011. It was a big brand. And so I'm kind of protective of it, and I'm kind of bummed to see, like, I just looked, actually, I have it up here. They're on episode 785, and I don't know who these people are. And I wonder how the audience feels about that over time too. It would be like Sacred Symbols, I think, could exist without me, without Chris, but I don't think it can exist without both of us, because then what is it? Yeah. And that's my opinion. I think it has to have at least a little bit of the spirit in there. Am I wrong on that? Like, I think it could lose one of us, but I don't think it could lose both of us, because then you wonder, like, okay, so why are you here? I mean, and I don't disrespect to Dustin. I'm talking about it from the origins of the show. Dustin's a newer addition.
It's a different thing. It's. I think there are certain people who are like a little bit more integral, or a little bit more like, I mean, even just like the stuff recently with Justin Roiland, right? which like, you know, there's all sorts of weird shit about that. And I'm not here to defend Justin Roiland because there's a lot of weird shit in there. But when they announced that they were, you know, oh, we're going to continue Rick and Morty still, and you know, we're going to continue all these other things, and it's like, it's on one hand, it's nice that they are not punishing artists and writers and all these other people for the mistakes of one person, and I think that's really cool and really great. Yeah, honestly, I think that's like that's the ideal way that things should work. But at the same time, those products are fundamentally not what they like. The voice of that show is Justin Roiland, and the voice of Squanch Games is Justin Roiland, and the voice of Solar Opposites is Justin Roiland. He has a lot of help, and there's not to devalue everybody, but it's gonna you're working on a husk at a certain point. Like, there's a slim chance that it could be better. I really doubt that, but I don't know. Part of me is like, what's the point even?
Right. That's what kind of what my argument was, and like kind of just extracting it was just, you know, politely just being like, I think this brand, you should do a new thing. Right. And
yeah,
like we kept doing Podcast Beyond. First of all, I wasn't an original member of Podcast Beyond, so I'm not even saying you have to be original. That's why I brought up Jack Parr and these other guys. Like, they're not the most associated with the Tonight Show. You know, you think of Jay Leno or whatever. But a great example is The Daily Show, where, you know, Craig Kilborn was the first host of The Daily Show, and I love Craig Kilborn, by the way, but no one thinks of him. They think of Jon Stewart. And so I'm not necessarily saying it's that. There were people that came after me to the show that I think were also in that 6 or 8 people that are really important to the show's heritage. I just think at some point you have to have like some sort of tendril to the original, or it does become something else. It becomes something run by fans of the show, I guess, that come in and like, and again, I'm talking from a pre-Dustin point of view, because I don't think Dustin would want to do the show without us.
Well, that's someone. Remember a few months ago, someone wrote in and asked if you died, would Chris and I keep doing the show?
I would want you to.
I think that, and I think the answer that we had at the time remains the same: is that I would love to keep doing a show with Chris, but I would retire the Sacred Symbols name.
Yeah, I think
I don't think that would. I don't think it would make sense from a perspective of the show, and I also think it would be disrespectful to keep doing that, to have that name without you. Like, it would be weird. It would be like we're to use a Chris term, like we're propping up your corpse. Like, hey, come listen to Sacred Symbols,
right? But
Colin's fucking dead,
right.
It's just Chris and I. Like, that wouldn't be right.
You kind of saw this happen with Giant Bomb recently, I think. You know, they lost all of their people. I mean, so what is it now?
Yeah, we would almost have to. We would almost
be
have to
Colin's
find
clothes. That's it.
Yeah.
I'll wear the Jets hoodie.
we would have to find like we'd have to pay some guy on Fiverr who looks suspiciously like you, to just sort of be silent in one corner, you know, or like some nonsense. I don't even know
His
what
name's
we would.
Colin. Like Colin.
You should just use footage. You should just use like footage of me, just B-roll from other episodes, every episode.
Yeah. It just that's so morbid and fucked. But I think, I don't know. I feel like it would have to be something else, because we're not. If we write, if Colin's gone, we're not. I'm straight up. I'm not going to write the show like this. It's going to be a completely different tone.
Yeah.
Entirely. It's going to be unrecognizable to it would be more like a Snark Tank, maybe like a more, I guess, a more organized Snark Tank type deal, which is like just not what Sacred Symbols is. And I think the second you fundamentally, it's good for like episode 1 of a podcast to sound very, very different from the most recent episode. That's good, but only up to a point. You know, it still has to have like some foundational identity that is in some way traced back to the original. And I just don't think that would be possible.
Yeah.
In that scenario.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. And you guys can do like what I always talk about this podcast in glowing terms, because I absolutely love them. It's my favorite podcast, basically, which is around the NFL. And there are 4 guys, but one of the guys died, Chris Wessling. He passed away. He died of cancer. And they've been doing the show since 2011 or 2012. I started listening to it in 2016, I think. So I wasn't there at the beginning, but They still do the show to this day, but they named their studio the Chris Wessling Podcast Arena or Podcast Studio or whatever, and which I thought was cute. And so they always introduce it as that to kind of have his memory in there. And then they still do the show and they talk about him and his memories and stuff all the time, which is neat. So you guys could do something like that. But that's what my advice would be is, again, because it's no disrespect to the people talking about PlayStation at IGN now. It's just that it's like, I just think if I were them, I'd be like, I don't want to do this. Like let's make a new product. But people can also argue I've been gone for more than half of the run now. So is it even quote unquote ours anymore? I would say it will always be Greg first. And I think I would be involved in that in some sort of secondary way forever. But because he was there from the beginning. But nonetheless, that's why I want Podcast Beyond. To answer your question in a much more succinct way, I think it would be really cool to do a retro PlayStation podcast, a retro PlayStation product of some sort. And what better podcast to do it than under my old podcast brand, Podcast Beyond, the original PlayStation podcast. Okay. Kurt, aka Big Juicy, wrote in and said, "Hello, boyos. Do any of you have any experience with getting games early in a retail environment? A lot of people on Reddit are getting Dead Space early at Walmart, so I figured why not give it a shot? Literally 30 minutes ago, I walked up to the electronics and looked in the case, no Dead Space. There's an employee stocking PS4 and 5 games, and he noticed me, so I asked if he could hook me up if he had the game. He said it didn't come out until Friday, and I told him a ton of people online got it at Walmart, and I kindly asked him to hook me up and to try to run it through the register for shits and giggles. Lo and behold, it worked. Shout out to Quez in electronics. You a homie." So this is good news, big news. I don't know that I've ever gotten something early in video games before. I think when I collected Star Wars figures in the 90s, I got like some stuff early that just hitting it at the right time. Or like, I literally used to be just call these places, be like, what's going on with the Star Wars? I'd be like in 7th grade, I'd be like, what's going on with the Star Wars toys today? Like, can you go and look, tell me like what's on the peg? I like didn't give a fuck. Dustin, you're a retail person. Have you ever found a game before it was set for sale, and were you able to get through the goalie? Because I know that, as he says, when people, the point of sale system will not let you through often, even if you do find it before sale date.
Yeah. So not me personally. I've never been able to sneak one past, but I do have a very cute and fun story. And that's that many years ago, it was either the Podcast Beyond or a Kind of Funny Facebook group. Somebody had posted that they got Persona 5 2 weeks early. It might have been more than 2 weeks, like 2.5 weeks or something. And I was really, really desperate to play this at the time. I was so excited for the game. So I messaged this guy and I was like, where did you get this? Just to figure out like if there was a possibility I could get it. And he mentioned that it was a local place in New York City. And I can't remember if I asked or if he offered. I probably still have the message, but and he was like, "I'll send you a copy. Just PayPal me the money, and I'll send it to you." And I was like, "Holy shit!" He's like, he was gonna go get me an additional copy, and I was like, I don't know this guy, but I'm willing to risk it. Why not? And sure enough, he sent it to me, and it was like priority ship, so it was like a day later. And I had Persona 5 2 weeks earlier.
Nice.
Now, here's where it gets cute. Maybe not still, but at least a few months ago, he is a patron of Last Stand.
Oh,
Roger.
Nice.
Shout out Roger.
Shout out to you, Roger. Persona Roger.
Helped me out all of those years ago. I think he might have been at Sacred 200. I don't think I got to say hello to him or anything like that. But Roger, you were, and probably still are, a real one. And very much appreciate it. It was so cool being able to play Persona 5 early.
Yeah, shout out to you. That's an awesome story. When you said lo and behold, I was like, well, here's the moment where we find out what the lo and behold leads to, because I was going to be like, because it could have been lo and behold, he fucking stole my money. Yeah.
Yeah.
We never saw that. We never saw that man again. And I played Persona at Street Date. I think, Chris, I'm curious if you have any experiences, because I think one thing that I do remember when I first started working for IGN as a freelancer, I would get games early to start writing strategy guides for them, like maybe a few weeks early. And that was so exciting. But as I've said on this show, that actually became a major, major burden in my life after a while. Because when you get something early and then you get everything early, which was what was happening, you feel like you need, if you don't get to it by the time it comes out, it's almost like, what a waste. I got to play things early. So it actually became these shackles that I was very kind of eager to break out of. That's why I feel like when people do it this organic way with these games, it must be so exciting because they don't really have that experience ever. And so you have nothing to be jaded off of. Have you ever been able to find something before Street Date?
When I was working at Sears, I remember because I used to work in the electronics section. I wasn't primarily, I was actually like in tools for some reason. They put me in tools and I hated it.
That's amazing.
It was just like it was so awful. Like I understood everything about it. I just like, it was just, I just didn't give a shit. And so people would be like, you know where the Allen wrenches are? It's like, yeah, I do. I need drill bits. And it's like, okay, so come over here, sir. And it's just like the worst experience. I would have much rather been in like electronics talking to people about like, you know, TVs and shit. But I remember Halo 4 came in. We got a shipment of Halo 4, I think like 2 weeks before. And I remember like I was thinking like I could just take this. I could just take it. It wouldn't even be a day. Sears is such a horribly managed company. They would not notice. I just like, should I? I debated with myself for like a good hour. I was like, I would go back in the room to look at it sometimes because I was just like, it's crazy. I've never had this opportunity before. I ended up not doing it because I was like, I don't know. I was too scared for some reason. I thought like for some reason like I would like put it in my system and then they'd be like, you're playing this too early, and then they would lock everything down.
That's what I was gonna say. I would be concerned about that too. Like that would be all I would care about. What the fuck is Walmart gonna do to you or whatever?
Oh yeah, I didn't give a shit about stealing from Sears.
Yeah, but totally. Like, and I do think that it has happened where people's shit has gotten shut down. I think they like undo it, but
yeah. That was my main concern. I was like, it's not worth not being able to play anything ever again to play this game early.
I think that's the right path.
So I was calculated and I waited like a good person, but I did go back there and like hold it and like read. I read the back of it a ton, and stuff like that, just because I was just like, it was just cool to be in an environment where you even got to see that kind of thing. It's like it's very nothing now. That wouldn't even faze me now, but at that time, like at your first job, it was just kind of special.
Definitely, dude. Things walk away. And so many, like when you think about how you had access to those games, it's like that's how things leak all the time. I always tell the story. It's like the awesome story about how the PS3 Slim literally just was sold just as it was. Like it leaked being sold legit. For people that have never seen this video, it's absolutely true. It's like somewhere in Southeast Asia at some market, PS3 Slim was just sold like with a controller loose to someone, and it was like people were like, "Is this fucking real? Like, what is this thing?" And that's how the PS3 Slim leaked. And I love shit like that, and I love mysteries like that. I think it's fun. So, as far as finding things early, though, I had such crazy access that I think it was kind of the meaning of it was kind of lost, and I really feel so much more relaxed these days playing what I want. I feel I play more games than I've ever played before, I think, because I'm just playing what I want to play instead of being like, I got to play for the next spoiler cast. I got to play for this review. It does. I know it sounds crazy to people out there. I know. And it's a great job to do, but you don't want to do it forever. I'll say that.
Yeah. I can imagine it getting pretty tiring after a while.
It's stressful because like dude, like you get a game and then there's an embargo and it's like, good luck. And it really is. It's shitty. Yeah, it's bad. Like I know it sounds like I would get Tales of whatever 50 hours, have an exclusive review going up 10 days from then. It's like I got to figure out when to play this game. I have 50 hours I have to figure out in 10 days to get through this game. 5 hours a day on average, and that's just got to come from somewhere. And sucks.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I've only been a part of this world for a little bit in comparison to you. And when we first started the show, we would get games early. Mm-hmm. We got I'm pretty sure we got Spider-Man early. I'm pretty sure we got
I think we got Days Gone was the last one.
Yeah, Days Gone was the last one.
Red Dead was we got that early.
Yeah. And I don't know. I it was new to me, so I thought it was kind of cool. Mm-hmm. It was kind of neat to be able to like, you know, like because my friends everybody who was in my apartment was like they're all video game people too, and so like, you know, I would come home with Spider-Man and they'd be like, "You're playing Spider-Man? What the fuck?" And that was kind of cool. That was like a cool feeling.
Yeah, it is. It is definitely.
But I also didn't really miss it when we stopped getting those codes. You know, it didn't really register. It's like, oh yeah, all right.
Well, I think Red Dead 2 was your first experience, and hopefully your only experience where it's like, I don't know what happened the last half. You know, not literally, but it's like I had to just, dude. I've been there so many times where it's like, gotta go.
That was very not fun.
Yeah,
I will. It's kind of amazing that I loved that game as much as I do, because I have to imagine that, you know, that probably would have been a pretty massive impact on my experience with it if I really like focused on that.
Yep.
Because we got that game, I think I feel like it was like maybe like 2 weeks. I think it was.
Yeah,
it was
not
a, it was
even.
A,
yeah. Like
it was a decent amount of time in comparison to like which some of them come like 3 days before, and it's like, okay, but that game's a long game, and I remember at one point being like, I gotta fucking finish this, and just like, I think that's why I don't like the ending. Like, I think that might be why I don't like the epilogue of Red Dead 2, where it like continues on.
It could be,
and it's because like when I thought I was done, I had so much left to do, and I had to do it by a very specific date, and I was just like, oh, this is so stressful.
Well, that's why I'm really eager to go back. Like, one game I want to go back and play again, although I liked it at the time. I don't even have trophies for it because I played it on debug. Was Killzone Shadowfall, which I had to go to Sony to play, like multiplayer and do all that kind of stuff, and because the PS4 wasn't even out. And I liked that game at the time, but there are games like that where I want to revisit them and just in mind thinking, I'm not crazy about the parameters in which I had to play this game, and I want to see where I can like what it's all about at peace. And that's why, because we've really embraced the like the rogue renegade attitude, but the reality is that from probably half of the industry, we could and can still get whatever we want. Like I have good friends at Koei Tecmo, Bandai Namco, EA, all these different places. There are other places where that wouldn't work with us no matter what. Sony, I think we're on Square Enix's shit list now, and a few others that we would never get anything from, whether we wanted them. Yeah, exactly. And whether we want to work with them or not, they won't work with us. But there is this whole pantheon of publishers that would gladly work with us, and I hear from them sometimes, and I kindly ask them, as I said on a recent episode, don't bother emailing us. I'm not being rude, but we're just not going to work with you. I think just having that hard and fast rule for our show, the Dukes can do what they want, you guys can do what you want on your other content, I just think it personally brings me a lot of peace and a lot of joy, because in just thinking about the games I've played over the last few years, or even since I started Last Stand in 2017, it's totally different than if you look at my trophies before that, when it's just a fucking machine gun of games. And I didn't see half of them through. We always make fun of people. People don't beat games. But I didn't beat a bunch of things. I mean, I beat a lot of stuff. Anything I reviewed, basically I beat. But I don't let anything go through the sieve now, unless I really don't like it. I just feel like I'm playing games and getting much more out of them these days. And people are too hung up on access. That's all they have going for them, or they feel like that's all they have going for them, which I think is a bigger thing. The perception that people won't wait or care only about thoughts and embargo. If people only want your thoughts and embargo, they don't want your thoughts. If you're so reliant on that, access is not, you shouldn't rely on access. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say I've had conversations with reviewers who are like, "Oh man, will anybody watch this if it's late?" And I'm just like, "Yes." Like, especially if they're like personality driven content creators, like, dude, I'll like Skill Up is a pretty good example. Like, I'll wait for a Skill Up review. You know what I mean? Like, I might not base my decision on whether or not to buy it on it if it's like super late, but I'll watch it for sure because I'm curious about what he's gonna say. Because I feel like he's got a good read on certain things, and I tend to agree with him a lot. And it's just a matter of, if people are there because they like you, they're gonna stay there.
Right. That's exactly right. And that, I think Angry Joe has been another guy that's benefited by that over time. Yeah, and I just 100%. Think there's one thing you can't mistake, and with us, and it's that we literally have no relationship with publishers, or anyone. I talk to some of my friends at studios, they offer us things and I say no. and try to avoid those tendrils. And that most recently, like we said, came up with The Last of Us on HBO. It's just like, well, let's just keep the hard and fast rule, keep ourselves liberated. And then the audience, there's just, I understand. Let me back up and say that I get why audiences think that people are too close to each other. Publishers and developers, and that's what I was saying earlier about the guy from IGN going to Naughty Dog. I'm like, that's fucking weird. Like, and so just removing yourself from those influences, whether active or passive, they nonetheless exist. And I know that from experience. It's hard to like know people and talk to people and then be like, your game sucks. It's not like something that comes naturally. And so I think people are too resigned, to that. Anyway.
Yeah. I know that exact and I'm sure, Colin, you feel this 20 times more than me ever. But I've sometimes heard things like, oh, people at this studio listen to Sacred Symbols, or people here listen. I'm like, I almost would rather, it's fun to know, right, that the people that make the games you love maybe listen to your voice, and that's cool. I'm sure some of them out there, what's up? But I also don't want to know at the same time, because I don't want to have that thought in the back of my mind if I want to be critical, which I'm not going to say it's going to stop me, but it does, like you said, it does feel bad if you're like, oh, these people like us, and I'm about to shit on what they made.
Hello,
The last
Crystal
4 years
Dynamics.
making.
Hello, Crystal.
Yeah. Hello.
How you doing, Crystal? Hey.
Dude, I love Crystal Dynamics or Square Enix, especially in Japan, listening in a conference room to that podcast. is still one of my very favorite thoughts that I hope happens.
In suits, they got dressed up for that.
They're like salarymen in Japan.
I love that they got dressed up for that. That's so amazing.
Well,
I hadn't even thought about that.
It does happen. I mean, like, you don't pull punches, but yeah, you're more. And maybe it makes you more mindful. But if you're a real critic of a studio, then how can you ever have gone and worked there? I guess I'm confused by what people's motivations even are. I never wanted to do that. I wanted to write about games. You know, when I would get mad, I would go look at associate producer roles, like I said, and maybe think about doing that, but not at studios that I had any relationships with. It's just weird. Like it does make you think twice. And I even saw a PR person say something along the lines of like, well, we do pay attention to who says what to our about our shit, so that when the shoe is on the other foot, like we remember, basically, you know, in so many words. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sure you do. I don't know why you're admitting that, but I'm sure that you do remember. And so the best way to kind of forego all of those tendrils it's just to remove yourself completely. You got to just cut it off. And just say it is what it is. And we can have friendships and relationships and all that kind of stuff, but I don't want it to be predicated on the games or your studio or your projects. And there are a lot of people that also, it goes both ways. Like the one thing I learned being at IGN and Kind of Funny was that like people will use the shit out of you too, and you won't even know it. And I was used by so many people, you know, over time in reality, that is also notable and in the forefront of my mind in these various experiences. And I don't know, it's interesting just because I have insight into it, and I'm curious how it works today, because I was the senior editor at IGN when IGN was a really big place, and I wonder who holds the cards now. Is it YouTubers, Twitch streamers, podcasters, legacy media, real media? I don't know. Anyway, we're way off I don't even know what were we talking about?
Getting games early.
How the fuck did we get on this topic? I have no idea. Thank you for writing in, Kurt. Diomaro wrote in and said, hello, you absolute units. Recently, Colin pointed out that he is willing to reach out to people to get on the show that have spread nonsense about him. One of the worst offenders of this being Adam Sessler. Sessler was recently on The Biggest Problem in the Universe, a podcast by Dick Masterson, a figure that isn't well liked by so-called wokesters, end quotes. Dick himself is famous for being on Dr. Phil and being in character as a caricature of a misogynist. I don't know anything about that. It's pretty funny if you've never seen it. Would Colin be willing to reach out to the Sess and have him on Sacred Plus? Keep on being the greatest podcast in the universe. Thank you. I appreciate your kind words. I want to say this about Adam Sessler because I just have observed it, and I mean this authentically and earnestly, and I'm curious what you guys think, especially because you're active on Twitter. Is anyone in his life coming up to him and being like, "What are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Are you okay?" You don't often see meltdowns like that. And for people that didn't see, it's like Adam Sessler, formerly of G4, just really going at and after people and really saying strange things that I think really, if they're true, which I don't think they even are, make him look like a real scumbag. Like he's basically saying, like, the basic gist of what I've been reading is like, I was never in the games. I was using this environment. I used you guys. I don't care about your fandom. You're all Muppets, basically. I mean, that's how I've read it. And I find that peculiar and weird. And I knew Adam Sessler, and like, I don't think that that's true. So I wonder, is anyone that loves him trying to step in? I don't know. Have you guys observed this at all, Dustin? Oh, I'm sorry, Chris, go ahead.
Well, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I saw some clip of him ranting on a podcast. That's not what I necessarily read out of it. Like, I don't really like Adam Sessler at all. But what I read from it was like, because he said, I was never a gamer. I was just a person who played games. And I'm like, all right, well.
Shut up. It's so annoying.
It's, I don't even really know what that means when you say that, you know, like, it's just kind of incoherent. And I just don't know what's wrong with him.
Well, it's just like you cared so little about. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's why I'm wondering, like, is anyone, and I'm not even talking about, I didn't see any of the video clips or his podcast appearances. I'm literally talking about his tweets to people.
Oh, right.
I've read them and they're awful. They really are. I don't know if he's deleted them or what. I'm sure they're somewhere if he has. And they're demeaning in some way to people. Like, not giving a fuck about people. See, the one thing that I hope people have always taken from the product is that we truly appreciate the people that listen to us. I would have been nothing without the people that listen to this podcast coming to my aid over and over again. I mean, I'm ride or die with the audience 100%. And to just turn your back and say like it never mattered and all that, that's why I'm just like, what? I don't believe that. And I don't understand why he's saying this or why he's doing it. And he has this claim because he founded this company co-founded this company called Spike Trap, which was bought by Reddit. So he's definitely made a nice chunk of change. But he was one of many co-founders. They raised money after he was out already. So a lot of the money that Reddit paid probably went to the original investors. No doubt he made a nice chunk of change, but he's acting like he has fuck you money, which I find dubious. And I'm just curious what happened here. And I'm surprised that it's kind of, no one's really reporting about it or talking about it, because I think it's kind of notable that this guy's like in meltdown. I mean, am I wrong, Dustin? I don't know.
But Colin, here's the question. Would you be willing to reach out to him and have him on Sacred Plus to answer some of these questions?
I would absolutely reach out to him, but I don't. Yeah. Here's where I draw the line, though, and this is where I guess I need some input is, when you know someone dislikes you that profoundly, like for instance, I said earlier that the guy I wrote to at Kotaku, or I've never had a correspondence with, I don't think, told me to go fuck myself. It's like, well, I don't think I'm going to email. I emailed him back after that, but I don't think I'm going to like email him again.
Yeah.
And be like, all right, like, I think I get the point. Is reaching out to a person like Adam Sessler kind of not acknowledging the reality that this person just hates me, you know? Is it, because I don't want to, I have things to say, and I think this person is toxic and awful for no reason. I don't know like what happened or why he feels this way about people, and Republicans and conservatives and me and a lot of other people. Just hates everyone, just hate and just vile stuff. But I don't know that anything really productive would come out of it. And I don't know if me even reaching out to him is kind of a sign of inherent disrespect, which I would not want to start off at in even trying to ask. You know what I mean? Because he's made in other words, he's made his thoughts clear. It would be equivalent to me reaching out to Luke at Kotaku again after he told me to go fuck myself.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. To me, it's like what good would come out of this? you could reach out. We already know his stance. It's one of those kind of just like, from your perspective and our perspective as a company, it's just like, all right, live and let be at this point. He doesn't need us to have this conversation. Like, he's kind of already worn who he is as a person and what he thinks about things, honestly, very boldly. So I don't know. To me, it seems like it would be a waste of time.
Yeah, like I kind of agree, just in the sense that my read on it is, I think people are inherently good. I think regardless of your political ideology, unless you're like an extremist, regardless of your political ideology, where you come from, what God you worship, whatever, I think people are fundamentally good. They want the same things. They're decent. I try not to prejudge based on certain characteristics, let's say, like your political persuasion. And he just writes off a whole swath of people. And to me, that's strange, because a lot of those people love you and loved you at the time when it was important to your career. And I don't understand where all the hate and animosity comes from. That's what I would be most curious to understand. But I don't think, like you said, it would be very productive, because he's either playing a character or just being flippant or just really being disrespectful. And any of those things, it's like, well, that nothing real comes out of that, I don't think.
Yeah.
But I do find it strange. Like, and I just want to know of anyone in his life, like people that like and love him in real life, not fans or people that know him from the industry. But because if I was acting like that, someone in my life would be like, "Are you okay?" What are you doing?
Well, maybe that's part of his problem.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, I don't know. I don't want to over speculate about someone I totally don't know about his life, but maybe he doesn't have that
I didn't know
person.
him very well either, but I did know him at one time as being actually a very warm and friendly and nice person. Like, I liked Adam. And I've said it before, I have a very, very specific memory. The last time I saw him at an event for Homefront the Revolution. And he like came up to me, hugged me. We were having a great rapport and conversation. We stepped aside and talked for a long time. And I was like that. And he knew I was exactly the same then. So he's the one that changed, I think. And I think this is the problem that is being experienced across the industry. It's just that a lot of the people, like, we haven't changed, so-called royal we haven't changed. It's like the expectations and perceptions of everything have changed, and somehow you're on the wrong side of the barrel suddenly. And it's exactly what happened with Carolina limited run games. It's like, well, this came out of literally nowhere, and it's fucked up. That's why I asked her about on the show. I was like, don't you feel some sort of duty to stand up for people that are in this position in a more vociferous way? She didn't. But I don't know. I just find, why do we tolerate? I guess what I'm asking is, why do we even tolerate this level of behavior? It's not right to talk to people and treat people like that. You can say whatever you want about me. And I went on about this on Constellation recently, about how I think social media brought out the worst in me and made perceptions of me become reality to some people, right? When I'm really not an aggressive person. And in defending myself, I often came off as the aggressor, and it was a mistake to do that, because it painted a different picture of the person than who I really am. And that's my fault and the fault of perception generally. And I wonder if the same thing's true here. Like, what is this? I don't know. I wonder what it is. Like, it's notable. I mean, think about, he used to do a show with Olivia Munn, right?
Yeah.
So Olivia Munn is a movie star. And by the way, I mean this in no disrespect to Adam Sessler. You'll understand where I'm going in a second. Olivia Munn's like a movie star. If Olivia Munn was having a meltdown like this, people would notice and say something and do something, and it would be a story and all this. Like, why isn't it a story that her old castmate, who comes from the same place, from the same world, has a totally different experience and outlook on it? And it's like, that seems to be like a very interesting story. I think it's awesome that these various podcasts are talking to him. I'm surprised that the Washington Post or the New York Times isn't wondering where this one-time iconic figure went, or where the audience and him went wrong with each other. It's very interesting. I don't know. Sorry, I'm going on. Does anyone, Chris, did you have something to say? I thought I heard someone.
Oh, no.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I can't see our quality. Our video quality is bad. I can't.
Yeah.
I can't see you. I'm sorry. All right. I'm gonna totally butcher this. Daidoji Raiji. Daidoji Reiji. I'm sorry. I'm sorry before I even begin. Hello, CDC. Good morning to you from the land of the rising sun. Oh, konnichiwa. That is Japan, or a Nihon for all the weebs out there. Since moving to Japan for work in March of 2022, I have been happy to hear from friends back home in the States, as well as here on Sacred Symbols, that PS5s are finally appearing in the wild and are easier to track down on the internet. With Final Fantasy XVI on the horizon, this certainly bodes well for longtime fans of the series who are worried about being able to play the next entry in their favorite series. Not so for this longtime fan of chocobos, I always say it as chocobo in my head, Moogles and Tonberries. Getting a PS5 in Japan is a Sisyphean task, doubly so for a gaijin such as yours truly. Most sites like the Japanese PlayStation 1 and electronic stores here require you to enter a lottery and win the chance to buy one. But just winning is not the end of the problem. You must have a credit card with the electronics store so they can see if you have already bought a PS5. While this certainly helps cut down on scalping and botting, it doesn't help a foreigner who has only lived here for just under a year. Credit cards can be difficult to get even for Japanese citizens. Do I get a friend to buy and ship me one from the States, obtain one from a third-party source via eBay or Yahoo? And before you ask, yes, people do use Yahoo for shopping here. I know that, actually. Or do I wait for Final Fantasy XVI to come to PC and try my best to avoid spoilers? What say you spoony bards of the sacred crew? Love the reference. Final Fantasy IV reference, of course. Thank you for writing in. Good to hear from you. So this seems to be obvious that you would just get one imported, right? I mean, someone can just go to the store and then bring it to FedEx and ship it to you. They're not region locked, as far as I remember. I mean, PlayStations haven't been region locked since PS3 was the last region locked PlayStation device, I think. Yeah. Vita wasn't region locked, PS4 wasn't region locked. PS5 I don't think is region locked. So wouldn't that be the obvious choice? I think so.
Yeah.
What do you think?
That sounds like the obvious choice, but it might be worth, if Final Fantasy 16 is the main game that you're waiting for, then you might be better off just waiting and trying to get one until, I don't know, maybe well, what I'm trying to think, what that comes out in July, right?
Yeah, I think so. July 17th.
So
I'll look it up.
Maybe early June, if you haven't found one yet, or if maybe the lottery system hasn't fully died down, that maybe that's the point in which you try to get one imported about a month beforehand.
I was way off, by the way. It's June 22nd.
June, okay.
July 2017, so, just totally made that up. Made that up.
So a month before that, maybe then you go the import route. But it sounds like Sony's been confident that these will become more and more available during this year. I mean, we've seen that here in the States, at least. It could be a totally different situation in Japan, but I wouldn't necessarily pay the high fee to get one imported quite yet. But that might be a good last resort.
Yeah, I just shipped something to to Hong Kong a few weeks ago, and it was the equivalent of, let's say, 10 cased video games. So like something a fraction of the size and weight of a PS5, and it cost, I think, like $50 or something like that.
That's not too bad.
You know, and it took like forever, but yeah, it got there. But yeah, no, not terrible. But I that would suggest that you would have to pay a premium, which then does suggest that maybe you should just pay a scalper. I mean, if worse comes to worse, yeah, you're right though. You have time. I mean, your fundamental thesis that you have time is right. Chris, what do you think? Should our friend in Japan here succumb to the import, buy a scalped one, or what?
Look, man, it's been several years. If you're still looking for a PlayStation, you've probably spent a lot more monetary value in stress looking for this thing. Just buy it. Just whatever the easiest way is for you to get your hands on this thing, even if it's like a little bit of a cost, just get it. Just buy it.
Yeah.
At this point, like it just kind of blows my mind that people are still like hunting. Like I understand the reality.
It is kind of strange, right? It's like Jesus Christ.
I understand the reality that it's like a different country and there's like some different things, but like I mean, just get it, man. just buy it. At this point, I would have. How much money have you spent? or how many hours over the course of the last like 2 years have you spent searching for this thing? I would imagine enough to be annoying, for it to be annoying for you to have to do this constantly.
I totally agree. I tend to agree. I know that's not everyone's going to agree, and I know money's tight, but your time is worth something.
Right. Yeah. And I know it comes across as like flippant, but like, I mean, like, you know, it's 2023. It's 2023.
Yeah. Yeah. It's 26 months in, I think, if my math is right.
Like, just take the weight off your shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
Get it scalped, get it shipped from the US in some way. There's many, many ways to do it at this point.
Yeah, who knows what customs are for electronics being shipped in? I don't even know. But
I don't know.
But yeah, I totally agree. You have recourse, and I think the biggest recourse of all, if again, to Dustin's point, you have time. So
100%.
If that's really all you care about, then you have time. And I just think that the lottery system that is going on in Japan right now that you described, I don't think that's even going to be a thing by the time Final Fantasy 16 comes out. Like, they're going to start. I think by the time Final Fantasy 16 comes out, we might have even seen the discless, the new format PS5.
Yeah,
in some way.
That sounds right.
There already is a discless PS5, but what I mean is a single unit now that will be discless, and then you will buy the disc drive on the side. I don't know when we will see that. That would have been something interesting to see at CES actually, but we didn't see it there. Okay, well, good luck to you, my friend. Stay safe over there. Not that you need to stay safe. Japan is a very safe country, unlike the United States. You come to the United States, stay safe.
Yeah. Stay indoors.
Chris, closing comments, my friend. It's time to go.
Yeah, well, probably going to play more Hi-Fi Rush, and then wait for tonight so I can get into Dead Space. I'm so excited. But before then, I've got to suck down 40 fucking protein shakes.
Go eat a tree of cashew nuts. Cashew nuts,
dude. I've had so many cashews.
I love cashews. Good for
just
you.
Throughout the recording. Yeah, it's good. It's good little way to eat.
Dustin, closing comments.
Closing comments. Thursday night, as I was Colin, you and I were texting last night. Actually, you texted me and said, I had Chipotle for Din Din. Was your exact
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think Holly and I, it's our Thursday tradition. We go to Chipotle, which we have lovingly started calling Chippers.
Chippers.
Holly
Nice.
she's like, ready to go to Chippers tonight. And I'm like, fuck yeah, we're going to Chippers.
And you dine in, right?
Yeah, might as well just, chill for a bit in the old Chipotle, the Butler Chipotle, which is pretty new. This is a new development in the past. It's about a year old now, I think.
That's exciting. Is it doing well?
Very exciting. I don't know. It seems it had a really bad launch, and I think it's put off a lot of people from going there because seriously, for the first 6 months, like half the menu was missing. Like, you want steak? Fuck you. No, we don't have that.
Yeah. That
you
sucks.
Want white rice? Nope, we don't. We only have brown rice.
Oh, man.
It was real bad for a long time, but it's pretty good now.
Yeah, I liked it in my maiden voyage. It's not real Mexican food, but it's good enough. And yeah, that's fine. That's totally fine with me. Well, enjoy Chippers.
Thank you.
And thank you all out there for your love, kindness, and support of All Things Last Stand and Sacred Symbols. We appreciate you. Couldn't do it without you. Remember to go support Chris in Creator Clash. Did they number it too? Like it's like the WrestleMania?
Yeah. It's Creator Clash 2.
Nice. Yeah, go support him. And I actually saw something being tweeted out about pay-per-view and all these different options.
Yeah, they just put out the pricing.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Well, I'm excited about it. Yeah, so thank you all out there. Be well. Take good care of yourselves. We'll see you next time for more Sacred Symbols. Until then, goodbye.
See ya.
Take care, guys.
Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is a product and trademark of Last Stand Media and Colin's Last Stand LLC, and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show was conceived by, is written by, and is directed by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-hosts are Chris Raygun Maldonado and Dustin Furman. The show is produced by executive producer Dustin Furman. It's edited by associate producer Ben Smith. All of Last Stand's theme music is by my best friend, Ramon Narvaez. As you know, all of Last Stand shows, including Sacred Symbols, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest tier, and we're grateful for your thoughtful and kind contributions to our independent endeavor. Thank you.